The interpreter, are you on? We would like you to go ahead and start.
Good morning. Announcement from interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then the Spanish interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de la reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region has historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, Digueño, the Luceño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you please confirm quorum?
Good morning. I can confirm a quorum with 17 of 19 voting jurisdictions and 5 of 11 advisory members present. I'd like to go ahead and move on to the first item on the agenda, which is item 1, non-agenda public comments. And before I do that, I would like to remind the public that no comments shall use loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. It will not be tolerated. Disorderly conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the board meeting is prohibited. Per our board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal public comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. Based on those factors, the chairwoman has determined that today's meeting, each member of the public will be allowed 1 minute for their comments. I will go ahead and call the first 5 members of the public per our policy. And that includes Jim Bennett, Cesar Javier, Mary Davis, Truth, and Mark. And the following people will be called at the end of the meeting for continued public comments. That is, allegedly Audra, Paul the Bold, B. Mittermiller, and phone number 672. Jim, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Cesar Javier.
Good morning, Jim Benedict, resident of Del Mar. Thank you for letting me speak today. My comments are regarding the 3 tunnel issues that they're attempting to have an option under Del Mar. I want to make you aware that your staff is doing a terrific job of sabotaging one of the options, option A. Mistruths, half-truths, complete fabrications, all emanating out of this board's staff. I believe the SANDAG decision makers, you, the board of directors, do not know much about these staff's shenanigans. Therefore, I'm speaking today. I'm limited to time to speak, but I'm happy to meet with anybody that would like to know more about exactly what's going on regarding eminent domain, military use of the trains, etc. Your board's walking a dangerous path, especially regarding eminent domain. And SANDAG's refusal to release information that we have requested 3 times, I've run out of time. You're probably not aware that our freedom of information.
And your time has expired. Our next commenter, Cesar Javier, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Mary Davis.
Cesar Javier. I declare that Air Pollution Control District be disbanded. Take it out and have this code enforcement capacity to be held by the county as the commander-in-chief. They have been collecting fees, permits. They have been planning such as cost recovery. They have never mentioned how to help victims of air quality issues, toxicity to be specific. They are sick, they are dying, and that should be the priority goal of.
Sir, your time has expired. Our next sir, your time has expired. Mary Davis, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Truth and then Mark.
Hi, good morning. Mary Davis here again on the biochemical hazmat toxin weaponry that is being dispelled at our people. And this is a humanitarian crisis. It's not only the people of South Bay that are being poisoned, it's the people of Mexico, and we need to recognize that and keep the political pressure. I want to give thanks to Mr. Fisher, Mr. McKay, Mr. Duncan, and Mr. Hsu for showing very strong leadership on this issue. I'm also asking for every one of you to go back to your home chambers and pass the IB resolution or something similar for a mitigation fund to create that where that people will be able to get compensated and that we can be proactive. And then lastly, I'm asking for sanctions. And again, whether that's withholding the toll revenue for future amendments. Also, akin to AB 1877, I am asking for a travel ban to Mexico. If it was good enough for the LGBTQ movement, it's good enough. And we need to be putting political pressure at especially since there is going to be a delay on this. Also, cost recovery for expenses. Thank you so much.
Truth, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Mark.
All right, I'm pressed now officially. Mario can't change the world, but he can flatten the organization old guard to hide all the dirty toll fiasco details. The worst lie SANDAG ever told was at the Imperial Beach City Council.
We are a metropolitan planning organization. We're not trying to get out of our work beyond our lane.
That's all you guys do. SANDAG hasn't been flat enough. Mario, feel free to bike your way out too. We need a CEO as much as we need Transat tax obligations to be broken. And the toll money for Mexico project will disproportionately harm Imperial Beach if there's no permanent mitigation fund. And 6.2% of Transat goes to SANDAG's environmental mitigation program. Why can't some of that money go to wastewater infrastructure and Tijuana River diversion and treatment projects? The excuses for finally addressing this issue and letting Mexico escape accountability are running out. Tick-tock. You can't keep putting your waxy fingers in your ears like Rolo does every single meeting. Disgusting. I also demand a Vision Zero plan for public transit. Why is it okay that people waiting for a trolley could be stabbed or shot, but not okay if they get hurt while riding a bike in traffic?
Your time expired. Mark, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Paul the Bold.
California is going bankrupt and we don't have enough money to spend on climate change bullshit when the people's literally just infrastructure and programs for our people and homeless are not occurring. Also, it doesn't seem like your brain is functioning well this morning, Nora. I hope you're all right because your clerk here just cited things that Mara Elliott was really clear are not allowed. You can't say if people can get angry or loud. You can't say if they can use profane language. And you can't say what their topic is as long as they feel in some way it loosely relates and they want to say so. That is called an omission and it is backed by 54954.3C of the Brown Act. So maybe you should let someone else take charge today until you're thinking a little clearer. But then disobeying rules of the Brown Act and other such things doesn't seem to be unusual here at all. Anything to promote the UN agenda and run over people's rights as they come here in droves.
Your time expired and I misspoke. That does conclude the non-agenda public comments at this time. The remaining will be taken at the end of the agenda.
Thank you. Are there any non-agenda member comments at this time? Councilmember Fisher?
Thanks, Chair. I pushed my button, but maybe it's not working this morning. Since the July 12th meeting where the board was unanimous in their decision to add on the formation of a working group to help offset the effects of the Tijuana solution or pollution, the Imperial Beach City Council at the September 4th meeting passed a resolution really pushing for SANDAG to make sure that the funding is there, that this problem continues to get addressed going forward. I don't know if anybody's actually seen the news this week that the impacts that it's been in Imperial Beach. Councilmember Duncan mentioned that, you know, it's hard because some people have said we've recognized 1,000 days of closures for our beaches. We've been closed since December 8th of 2021. If anybody around this room could tell me where they were at, I'd be very surprised. It's so long ago and so unfortunate. I appreciate all the help from many members of this board who have been very vocal in what they do and where they're going to help us alleviate this problem. But again, it does, you know, get to the point where it is warfare that it comes in the shape of toxins and every other chemical. It's complete failure from our governments, both the Mexican government and the United States government. There's been lots of promises that are made, and we're hoping that these come to fruition. And I hope that, you know, I'd like to ask our CEO as a follow-up to the commitment that was made at the July 12th meeting, that before the end of this year, that staff brings back an actionable item in regards to this. To be honest, we don't need any more excuses. To me, excuses equal a no. The community of Imperial Beach and the surrounding communities who are impacted can't take any more no's. We need the solutions. Again, we've heard lots of promises. The timeframes are just not acceptable to us. And we want to make sure that, you know, we move forward swiftly and quickly. Ideally, it would be in the best interest of our communities in this county if our governor would declare a state of emergency, or the Biden administration would create a declaration of emergency, because we need the funding. We need it now. We don't need any more excuses. Thank you.
So, Councilmember, I just want to make sure that I understand what is it that you're exactly asking. So are you asking for a report back from the committee? I know that Councilmember Duncan also brought this up during the executive committee. So I just want to double check that we are making the request. So you're asking the actual assessment of what it, like, for the board, the team to come back with what it would take to be able to actually implement the resolution and also an action item on it? Or can you be more clear about what you need?
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. I want to make sure that before, you know, obviously this is election year. Half of this board, I think, was new in the, you know, after the last election. And so I think it's important that this board approve any action that's taken. I'm not interested in just an update. I want to make sure that we're taking action as a board to further the next steps. Again, I don't think that an update of where we might be, but really some genuine action that's going to continue to move the working group forward.
So what you would like is a report back about what the financial how the formula for the financial situation would be to be able to implement the resolution that Imperial Beach is recommending, right? I mean, I think that's what you're asking for. So, because we need to know what the fiscal impact is to the actual Otay Mesa port of entry, right? And what that would look like, what are the elements to be able to achieve it, and what a timeline would look like, and all of that, and then an action from that recommendation to the board,
Correct,
right?
because I'm very certain it's going to require some funding from the SANDAG side, and I want to make sure.
Well, and
that-
also some federal legislation that we might have to adjust laws in order to be able to do that, because the memorandum of understanding is one, right, about how the funding is distributed. So I think there's a little bit more nuance to it. So that's why I'm being very, I actually know the answer, but I'm being very clear about what I'm asking for, because I want to make sure that on the record, we're very clear about what you need and what the city of Imperial Beach is asking for.
Yeah, and that's correct, Chair, that we're very aware of what it's going to take to get this done. But again, it's not going to be in the best interest if we just get it in the form of report. So I want to make sure that this board has the opportunity to continue to take action on this item. So that is correct.
All right, is that clear? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll expand more on my report on it. Yeah.
Okay, Director Townsend.
Good morning. Just an announcement about a closure we have this weekend. I wanted to alert the board and everyone else. So eastbound 8 in the El Cajon area tonight, we're going to initiate a closure. Basically, it's a weekend closure so that we can restore the bridge deck going eastbound 8 through the El Cajon area. So the plan ahead, we've got detour signs in place. I think the plan is to go north 125 to east 52 and south on 67 to continue to go eastbound. So just wanted to alert the board that we do have this closure. We'll continue to see some of these closures in the future as we restore our infrastructure. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Edison.
Thank you. I have some very positive news to share. NCTD Plus, the district's microtransit pilot program, recently launched in San Marcos and is experiencing ridership that's far in excess of expectations. As a reminder, NCTD Plus San Marcos is the first of 4 pilot programs to provide on-demand transportation for residents and visitors within the defined zone. In response to community feedback, the district expanded the service zone to include additional public or popular San Marcos destinations and also reduced fares for customers connecting from Sprinter stations by half. Now, a customer connecting to NCTD Plus from a Sprinter station pays only $1.50 per person per trip. On-demand group rides not originating from Sprinter Station have also been reduced to $3 for the first passenger and $1.50 for each additional passenger on the same booking. In response to the service expansion and lower fares, ridership has doubled. It's pretty impressive. The NCTD Plus pilot in Vista is anticipated to launch in April of 2025. The district has applied for funding from SANDAG's Access for All program for upcoming pilots. If this request is granted, implementation of the Vista pilot could come even sooner. Thanks.
Thank you. We like good news. Deputy Mayor Gasterlin.
Yes, I want to add my words of support to Imperial Beach for the impacts of the sewage drainage to Imperial Beach and the importance of getting it solved. This is also in addition to John Duncan from Coronado speaking earlier. My colleagues at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography monitor not only the water, but also the air. And this is a problem not just for Imperial Beach. This is really a problem for all of us. And we in Del Mar are intimately aware that our water is connected. You know, the ocean waters don't have firewalls. When there's sewage going into Imperial Beach's beaches and Coronados, it makes its way not only in the water, but also in the air. So I really hope that we can come up with good solutions and fund them sooner rather than later.
Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple of things, and thank you to NCTD for NCTD Plus. One other thing that I would like to note is youth opportunity passes can actually be used now, which originally it wasn't. So I'm glad to see that the ridership has doubled. And expanded. I wanted to bring up Sandria, which is a working group with SANDAG staff, and my understanding is there's a consultant actually involved in this as well, but it's taking from cities. There is this discussion as one of the funding mechanisms, taking some of the city's tax increment, which would be in San Marcos's case, we only get 6.6% out of every property tax dollar, so that there is a discussion of us willingly giving over 0.5% of that 6.6%, which I'm adamantly opposed to. It is being floated as a concept, but I do know that it is in writing and it hasn't been struck out just straight away. I just wanted to alert the rest of the board. I also brought this up during our legislative report at executive, so that if there is some sort of legislative fix to somehow take money away from the cities, that we would all be notified. Then I wanted to also bring up that in our last meeting, which was all the way back in July, it seems like a year ago, that at our meeting, I had brought up the situation of Transnet, the allocation of those funds to the new regional plan, which Mr. Kirk was here then. He had said that it would be the new voting structure as of AB 805. I would like to get a legal opinion on that from our current legal counsel as to whether it would be at the time of Transnet actually passing, or if it would be the new AB 805 weighted vote. I actually have seen a legal opinion from an outside counsel saying that no, it would actually be at the time of passage, which would be Transnet, which would be the original voting structure, which is not just the weighted vote with 3 cities have, and it would be, by the way, 2/3 majority needed, but still anything that would be able to change that. And if you all recall, Mr. Kirk had said that we would that it would be the new weighting structure, the new weighted structure. And I just have an issue with that, because I think if we are going to change the 0.5-cent sales tax, we need to have that discussion in public. So anyway, I would like a legal opinion on that, if we could, please. Thank you.
Mr. Cabrera.
Thank you, Chair. For those of you that missed it, on Labor Day weekend, we opened the first phase of the new Terminal 1 parking structure. So 2,800 new parking spaces now available right in front of Terminal 1. That is a down payment of sorts. The other half is being built, and it'll be a total of over 5,000 parking spaces in front of Terminal 1. And the exciting part is, it's all exciting for us infrastructure nerds, but the exciting part is that in 12 months, September of next year, we will open the first 19 gates of the new T1. And this is the last major milestone before that. So get excited for those of you that have to go through Terminal 1 and the joy that is. The mosh pit, as the coastal commissioners called it when they gave us our permits, it's 12 months away. So something to look forward to.
Thank you. More great news. I'm going to go ahead and turn over to the CEO report.
Thank you. Well, welcome back to all of you. It's after the summer now, and but even so, we were dark in August. Team was having working in a lot of meetings, some reports. We traveled to Sacramento. We had some meetings regarding with the housing department, regarding the housing RENA issues that you're bringing up. We also had meetings with Cal EPA and the governor's office to bring up the issues of border environmental issues that have been discussed today. And we also met with other agencies to talk about greenhouse emission targets and seeing where we could land with that. Regarding, I'm in September 27, I'll be coming and providing you an update of what I'm seeing, where I'm going with the organization from a structural perspective, of course, always with your okay, you're the bosses. So we'll be presenting that assessment here. Regarding project updates, on the Pershing Bikeway, since we last met, it was open. The Pershing Bikeway gets about 2.2 miles of bike and pedestrian pathways going through Balboa Park. On the Inland Trail project, construction started in June, and we're expecting to complete this section by 2026. Regarding the transit to airport, there's been a lot of media coverage about that. We're not deviating from what the board was presented in February and the directions the board gave us. In fact, we're getting ready to kick off some surveys, and we will be bringing an update to the board before the end of the year on the project and some of the alternatives that the team are looking into it. On the Lausanne realignment, this week we kicked off the value analysis team meeting. Thank you for the board members that did attend the VA study. It's a journey, but it's a process to show transparency of how alternatives are developed. That doesn't mean that there will be total consensus on one single alternative. It's the process to develop alternatives to then move them on into the environmental document process. But it's important that we show that inclusiveness in all the thoughts there. Patiquitos Lagoon Double Track Project has begun the sand replenishment. We're working with Mayor Krantz on some issues for access. We will have some good resolution there. And at the end, that project will also have a double track about more than half a mile and replace some old bridges that it has there in the line. Regarding the Purple Line Rapid 688, we had public workshops a few weeks ago on the Purple Line. It's understandable. The Purple Line, it's a long lead project. It's not going to happen overnight. So we are also looking at the transit solutions to go and serve the community in that area. There are some public surveys going on. We really encourage the public to go to our website by October so we can understand what is the usage, the destinations, origins from South Bay to Sorrento, so we can really refine the outcome of that study. Regarding the item that has been discussed about the Tijuana River and the Imperial County resolution, Imperial Beach resolution. I'm still going through my old days. In July, the board directed us to form a working group. We since have been pursuing a grant for that. We think we have secured, we're very close to securing a grant from Caltrans for climate action that's going to allow us to create that working group and bring in an assessment from all what has been done, because as you're all aware, it has mentioned here, there's been a lot of assessments on the environmental impacts of the border. Now we need to bring all that together. There's a lot of discussion on the immediate resolutions, but also what's going to be the sustainability and what are going to be the options. So that's what we're going to be looking into it, developing kind of a master plan, environmental master plan for the border that will be continuously updated on both sides of the border with our partners and create that slur of alternatives. Cal EPA has already done something like that. EPA with their 2025 plan has also, and also some education institutions. So it's bringing all that together, but also looking into how can that be sustained through the years. It's not just who's going to do a treatment plant, but what's going to happen after that? How is it going to be sustained? What are the next projects that are going to be coming up? This is an ongoing, how are we going to be growing in a responsible way at the border? So we'll be coming in the future meetings for a budget addendum to be able to receive that grant. It's a climate action grant that Caltrans is going to supply us. And that's going to allow us to create the working group, create the structure, and do those assessments. And we'll look into the more detailed items that you brought up, Councilmember Fisher.
May I ask a brief question, Chair, of the CEO?
Sure.
Thank you. And I appreciate everything that you've just said, and I'm supportive of it. My concern, and I imagine, I'm sure Imperial Beach's concern is that with that very high level view, and obviously we need to operate with a holistic understanding of what we're doing here at this board. But when the language was added to the motion about this, it was that as well, in my opinion, and maybe we could talk about it when it comes up on the agenda, I believe you said October, that it is that sort of review or understanding on what we're doing in relation to the border is considered now as well, not just in the future. Meaning, for instance, if I don't know the time frame on your plan and the grant and everything, but that it also hand in hand with that at the same time, we are able to review issues such as Imperial Beach's resolution and whether we can do something related to the toll. And anyway, I'll stop going into it further, but that's my desire and what I was attempting to request at the executive committee.
No, that's the plan, to bring in also a comparison or an assessment of what the current legislations are, what would be need to change, what the financing structure is, and what would the impact be due to the request. I think that's the assessment we can bring and have a pretty tangible discussion about that. Okay. Regarding State Route 67, you're going to see that there are going to be coming more reports on projects. It's going to be going to the Transportation Committee for an update. And we will also be bringing it to the board. And this is the State Route 67 evacuation environmental document that Caltrans leading. We also, Mayor Jones, you requested an update on 78. We had a virtual update yesterday. We will be scheduling a following up for those members who in that area who weren't able to attend. And we will also be scheduling some updates here to the board and TC. On downtown stopover, Mayor Jones, you also requested to bring an item to the board. We were ready to bring the item, but we did wanted to hold off. We will be having a workshop meeting with MTS on a slew of subjects. This will be discussed and it will allow us to have more fresh information and options so we can bring it to our report. So I hope you're okay with us bringing it in the near future, that update, but we haven't forgotten about that. We also wanted to update you on the request Council Member Burkholder had on Transnet. You asked us for specific information regarding the Transnet investments in Carlsbad. We did send the Transnet anniversary information, but we are working on a update information on that for all the jurisdictions. So we should be sending that probably by the end of this year. I hope that's okay with you. Other updates that I have, as you could see, our General Counsel, John Kirk, retired. And we have Amberlyn Deaton, Chief Deputy Counsel here covering right now. The idea is that we would like to try to get temporary counsel, outside counsel to serve all of you. And as we're doing the outreach for a general counsel. But this would allow you to evaluate if the outside counsel to the board model directly to you, it would be satisfactory, while we will still have a general counsel working on internal matters like HR, right-of-way issues, and all those. So we should be bringing that up. That was one of the reasons I was calling. I called some of you to consult and see how you felt about that idea. So we should be bringing one of those firms up, legal firms that specializes in supporting water districts, city councils, to provide that support while we're doing the outreach, but at the same time, we gauge and hear from you of how you feel with that model. That concludes my report, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Councilmember Shu.
Thank you, Chair Vargas. Since the issue of the pollution at the river is coming up, I thought I should probably add to that report a bit. And thank you, Chair Vargas, because I want to report on a motion that you made at yesterday's Air Pollution Control District board meeting, which pertains to this topic. And then two things to be noted in that. One is that the Air Pollution Control District is working as fast as we can with the county to distribute filtration. You know, the problem is occurring today, occurring yesterday. We need to provide aid to these communities as fast as possible. And right now, air filtration is part of that answer. The other is that based on our actions yesterday at the Air Pollution Control District Board, we have asked the county to implement our emergency services protocols to have an incident commander and develop and go ahead and use that whole system to act accordingly, since this is an emergency and we should be treating it just like any other major incident, like a fire or earthquake, that employs a whole system of communications and immediate action. And I think this is what we need. We can make adjustments to that, accommodate that, since this is a long-going emergency, maybe going on for many more months, and make some other adjustments. So I just want to let you know the Air Pollution Control District did act in that accordingly just yesterday afternoon. And last kind of a comment as part of Mr. Orso's report, I hope in the future when we talk about the Purple Line, we don't stop at Otay Mesa. Let's say from Sorrento Valley across the border to Tijuana, because that's the way we need to look at it. And I think and it's related to the other part of your report about pollution and how we're dealing with the border. We have to see the other ways to cross the border that we currently have has to be put into the options. We already have a pilot program along those lines. So let's just call it a Purple Line from Tijuana to Sorrento Valley. That's what we should be studying, not Otay Mesa. Once we do that, I think we're going to solve some bigger problems. Anyway, thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. So a couple of things. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Mario and the team for hitting the ground running. We were dark in terms of the meeting, but we still continue to have a lot of meetings about some of the next steps and what we needed to do to ensure that SANDAG was moving in the right direction. So appreciate all the work that everyone has done. I wanted to just kind of make sure that we level set on a couple of things as related to some of the issues that have been raised around the Tijuana River Valley. Just a reminder from the county's perspective, 2 weeks after becoming a supervisor, one of the things that we did is declare it a public health care crisis. And we did that because it had never been seen as a public health care crisis in the past or declared by the county of San Diego. And so that happened in 2021. And then last year, we declared it an emergency. And so is it working fast enough in terms of the pace of government and how quickly we work? No. But if it wasn't for those emergencies, the recommendation that I brought forward to our county to be able to, for instance, get $100,000 of our money to be able to implement the air filter program, which really was a pilot program that I created because I wanted to have a short-term solution. It's really actually embarrassing to have to tell the community that this is all we have right now. So I'm going to ask that as we're looking for the funding from the toll road, I'm going to ask the cities to also look at their funding process to see how they can allocate some funding for the air filters. The County of San Diego put some money forward. This was not in our budget, so I had to do, I'm grateful for my colleagues like Supervisor Anderson that were able to allocate some of these dollars. I'm looking at additional emergency funding, but out of the 18 cities that are out there, the cities that represent the South Bay, if each one of you can look at your budgets and see if you are able to also allocate funding, that would be fantastic. Because right now, the funding is really me begging the EPA for funding and some other entities. And so as a result of that, we're getting another $100,000, which is the money that got brought into APCD. Still not enough. You need to know that we need 10,000 filters for the community that has been impacted for over 3 decades, right? And out of that 10,000 filters that we need, it's approximately $2.2 million. And that's just one filter per household. That is not one for each room or anything like that. So I want to make sure that we don't get caught up in this idea that the filters is a solution. The reality is that the problem is the actual infrastructure issue at the Tijuana River Valley, which is really the work that Mexico has to do on their side. And we forget to make sure that we have to continue to put the pressure at that level with the new president and make sure that, everything was degutted 4 years in the previous administration. This is why IBWC has had to rebuild. And so I think it's extremely important that we don't forget that. And in the last 4 years, they've been trying to get back. COVID put us back with the pipeline, and now we were able to get a RFP, and this process is happening, but it's not happening soon enough. There was a lot of concern when we decided to do the water treatment, and because of it, our beaches in Imperial Beach have been closed 1,000 days, and it's unfortunate, but we were trying to do that piece. Just last Friday, Senator Padilla was here, Councilmember Duncan, myself, the Mayor of Coronado, were all there. I think there's a bright light in terms of long-term work that's going to be done, with the EPA being the one in charge of actual border quality restoration, which in the end, that is the piece that we really need to address in order to be able to address the air quality issues that our communities are facing. And so I want to make sure that as we're looking at this committee, because look, I have a committee. Another committee was created by the senators. There's another committee by the local city council. In the end, it has to be the federal government that takes the lead and actually continues to push to get the money, because all of us local entities can continue to fight and ask for a state of emergency and an emergency. But unless we get the federal government to get us the additional dollars that we need, we're not going to be able to move forward fast enough. We're looking at 5 years for this project to be done. And we can't keep just saying, oh, 5 years, oh, 10 years. And not only that, but let's be realistic about the fact that the money from OTAI, we don't even have it on the American side yet. And so I want to make sure that we're very clear about what we're putting forth in these items, and we're not trying to, give the public, an idea that this is going to be the end all of how we're going to be able to fix this, because it's going to take a little bit more than that. And so I am hopeful with the EPA legislation that Senator Padilla is pushing and Senator Butler. It still needs to get passed in order for that to be able to happen. But if I implore you, as the chair of this board, as someone who is a board member of APCD and at CARB and trying to get all those pockets of funding to be able to come into our communities, that if you have additional dollars or in your reserves, if you are the city of Imperial Beach, the city of San Diego, or any of our neighboring cities, this is a crisis. And if you believe this is a crisis, you can also fund some of these programs through your councils. And so I ask you to really consider that, City of Coronado as well. And that would help us at least alleviate. Right now, we've only been able to distribute 400 filters. We're going to distribute another 400 filters that got approved yesterday. There are still 3,200 people in this list pilot program that I created, but it's not fast enough. And so if any one of you have an opportunity to do that, I would really appreciate it. And with that, looking forward to the work that we're going to be doing together on this issue. And I'm glad that everybody, it's going to be all hands on deck to be able to move this forward. That is my update that I want to make sure that I give you around this particular issue of the Tijuana River Valley and the work that the county is doing, in addition to our public health teams being on the ground and ensuring that they're partnering and doing the work that needs to happen with the researchers so that the correct information is provided to our communities in terms of the imminent threat, notwithstanding the impact that the odor is having on our communities on an every day. And this is a fight that we're going to continue to do. All right, with that, Mayor Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do have just one comment on our executive director's report, but I did want to weigh in on the Tijuana River Valley. I think it's important that we also continue to push our state and federal partners to declare a state of an emergency. I had gone down there with Deputy Mayor Duncan and also Mayor Aguirre to a press conference. I'm just shocked that it still hasn't happened yet. I mean, it really is unbelievable. And how many people are affected in the South County? It's honestly unbelievable. I still am baffled by it. And every single day, I mean, having the beach closed over 1,000 days, I just don't understand it. Anyway, but to our executive director's information, I would love to see when I had brought up earlier about the having council look at the Transnet vote at the time of us changing it, whether it would be a weighted vote or it would be the standard at the time of passage of Transnet. I think an outside counsel on this that represents the member agencies would be a prudent thing for them to do. Thank you.
Yeah, and last but not least, Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, which begins on, give me a second. It's so hard. I just want to make sure I don't forget. Hispanic Heritage Month, which begins on Sunday, September 15th. And so we're going to make sure we continue to honor diversity and work together and for a more inclusive future as well. Councilmember Duncan?
Thank you. Just briefly in regard to the trip I just returned from Washington, D.C., advocating on this issue of the funding for the Tijuana River Valley situation and the transborder sewage flow remediation with the plant. So there's 4 particular bills that we were advocating on. One of the bills I mentioned earlier, which is the funding for the IBWC and reconciling the Senate and the House bill. I believe that'll happen. There are 2 other bills that I think may be of interest to you based off the comments you just made. One is there is a replenishment bill of FEMA that because our FEMA funds for the country are almost completely wiped out. If we have a disaster now, we're not going to be able to fund the help for that. But in that bill, there's a request for a particular carve out of funds for the Tijuana River Valley, which may include some funds potentially for the community in regard to things that you're speaking about around air filters and other remediation items. There's also a WRDA bill that's going through. I think it has a good chance of passing that also has a carve out of funds specifically for the Tijuana River Valley. I will just finally say in regard to the Senator Padilla bill, which is co-sponsored by Congressmember Juan Vargas and Scott Peters in the House and others, that it looks like it will not be passed this session and will likely be moved into the new Congress once it's sworn in. But I agree with you, that could be an amazing bill with the EPA acting as the full oversight. And I'm not sure if what you were referring to earlier about the funds is the ability for funds to be moved back and forth potentially between federal, state, and county agencies. But I just wanted to mention that. And then I'll just say 2 other comments that I do think are important to remember, because when we're in DC, it's interesting. I have people that are conservative who are really mad at me for meeting with Adam Schiff for a long period of time. And I have people that are liberal that are really mad at me for meeting with the Navy SEAL Congress members who are very conservative. But in order to get anything through Congress, you have to have the most conservative side, the most liberal side, and then the San Diego stakeholders. So that's what I believe. I just wanted to state that there's large support in Congress for helping us now beyond probably what has ever existed previously. So thank you.
We're going to go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. I'm going to go ahead.
I'm sorry. Quick question.
Oh, okay. Are you using? Yes. Your name is not on here, but go ahead. I mean, your name is not popping up on the thing. It didn't work. So can somebody check? Go ahead.
Sorry about that. It says I'm on the queue, but anyway, thank you, Chair. I just had a question for you, Chair. Approximately how much are those air filters? What are they running?
We were able to get quick procurement, and it's about $200, $250 per. It's the actual air filter and two refills is what they're called. Yeah. And they are energy saving so that it doesn't impact people's electricity bill. It's the equivalent of just like one light bulb.
So $250 plus 2 refills.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I know more about filters than I've ever met. I mean, more than I ever wanted to know in my life. But, anyway, we'll continue on. I can have a side conversation about this. We're good. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and move over to our consent agenda. I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Also, I'd like to let the members of the body know that on the consent agenda, item number 3 was amended by the executive committee to amend the agenda for September 27th. And those virtual public commenters, I would like to remind you to please state the number of the item or items of which you are speaking on. I will call in person first. Mark, followed by allegedly Audra. Mark, please come to the podium.
I've never heard so many deceptive lies as Mario Orso was speaking a while ago about his climate action plan. First of all, as I was stating before in the former meeting, fires only start at 660 degrees. They're being set. An article by Smithsonian literally says that 85% of the fires are being set. That's pretty much the entire increase in the last 5 or 10 years. Also, water temperatures were extremely low in the ocean this summer. I was really disappointed. I hardly went out and boogie boarded or snorkeled or anything, but they're supposed to be way up, right? No. The hottest day on record is 1913. We haven't had a day that hot since, even though carbon emissions have been immense since then. And Mission Beach, they built the wall in 1925, and Mission Valley used to be a river. So the idea that flooding is something new to this area is just not true. Now, there is climate change. It's not caused so much by people, and this whole
And your time expired. Allegedly Audra, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Truth. You'll be followed by Gambler.
I'm wondering how the illegal immigrants fit into our climate action plan, because they are really creating a lot of GHGs with the flights that they're taking today and every day, and buses that they ride from either Border Patrol, or Damaris Express. And then, are we going to charge them a fee? Perhaps we should do that when they cross the border, because if we really want to save the planet, we're really going to need to crack down on these individuals. They're getting flights for free, so we should charge them for that as well. And also,
What's the item that you're talking about in the consent agenda?
I am, yes, number 1. Thank you, Nora. So yeah, I'm just wondering if you could put that on the agenda or make a policy so that as soon as they come across, they can, make up for their carbon footprint.
So I don't know what.
I'm sorry, what? What, Nora? I can't hear you. What? What'd you say? That's what I thought. Thanks.
Truth, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Gambler, and the final 2 commenters, phone number 672 and Paul the Bold. And these are agenda items number 2 through 8.
Item 2, the minutes say Nora missed another meeting on July 26. On page 8, Rita's last name is misspelled. Item 4, why do Losan ghost trains require PR services? Item 5, why has SANDAG failed board policy number 18 by allowing MTS to make a major transit service disruption with the copper line? It violates SANDAG's regional plan goal, better serving East County residents by significantly affecting passenger trip making with a detrimental impact on geographic connections and time transfers. A Title VI complaint was filed, and you all actually believe that people are going to use the public transit when a 15-year-old was killed by gunfire while waiting for a trolley. Wake up. Item 7, $850,000 from the Families and Workers Fund is basically a PLA from a socialist organization whose featured grantee is called New America. Their executive committee includes the Ford, the Rockefeller, Open Society, and the Gates Foundation. No to racist DEI quotas, they can keep their dirty money. Item 8, $2.8 million on meetings and propaganda to the tribes. Is that to get Indians to buy into the expensive stack and pack scam? I think they should choose sovereignty. If government would get out of the way of the real estate market, prices could actually come down, instead of getting out of your lane, Mario. Thank you.
Your time expired. Also, I'd like to let the members know that we will correct the spelling of Rita Clement's name before we repost the minutes when they're approved. Gambler, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by phone number 672 and the final commenter, Paul the Bold.
Welcome one, welcome all. This is Gambler here. San Diego County did a wonderful hit piece on me. Gotta love it. So I also noticed that Michael Vu is now demoted, which is awesome. So let's go ahead and talk about all you guys is using basically a bunch of BS to push your agenda.
I'm going to ask you, Justin, to tell me what items you're speaking
2 through 8. You guys use false information to push your agenda, and I'm getting really tired of it. And I would like you guys to stop. I mean, hell, you had to make up shit to go ahead and get that restraining order. So let's be honest with each other. Once. You also demoted Michael Vu, so you all recognize that there is a problem. but you don't want to admit it. So be wary that there's a lot of people looking at this next election. Election fraud will be found, and the people responsible will most likely go to jail. Not by me. I just wanted to make sure San Diego County was going to hit most of the brunt of that. So all of you staying quiet regarding this issue.
And your time expired. Our next commenter, phone number 672, please go ahead.
Before my time has started, I'd like to point out to the clerk that I was skipped on my non-agenda the last meeting. Anyways, okay, now I will start. And yeah, I'm speaking on 2 through 8. It's Consuelo, by the way, 672. Anyways, so yeah, happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Nothing like honoring the mostly Hispanics down south, like passing the blame onto the others and continuing just discussing solutions instead of taking real action. And I know it's like a Band-Aid, like everything else government does, but in order for every home to have a filter in each room, Nora, you might want to consider giving up the security and the gas guzzler that you have drive you around. I mean, it's $42,000 a month. You can totally donate that to these people to have every room with a filter. Again, I know it's a Band-Aid, but the fact is that nobody even really knows who you are. So the fact that you have security and a gas.
Your time expired. Our final commenter, Paul the Bold. Please keep your comments to agenda consent items 2 through 8. Please go ahead.
Hi, Paul Bold, 5. It is disgusting that SANDAG made the arrogant statement, quote, SANDAG recognizes the value of working collaboratively with tribal governments and local, state, and federal agency staff to achieve regional goals, which leaves out the residents of the region. This tokenism type stuff in a civil rights document implies non-collaboration. Then it has nerve to add SANDAG has the responsibility to look into the future and propose plans that best satisfy the diverse transportation needs and concerns of the San Diego region, when it does not allow voting participation from East County or even show it on many maps, not at planning sessions I went to. And I do not know how SANDAG can, quote, certify the fair and equitable distribution of funds, since its whole VMT agenda will make driving harder for the rural or less privileged.
Your time expired, and that concludes the comments on the consent agenda.
Are there any member comments?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, Councilmember Shu first, and then Councilmember Calder. I don't know why, so her thing is not working. That's why I asked, just so you know, because nothing was showing up. So Councilmember Shu.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move approval of the consent calendar, but prior to me making that move, I want to see if staff can put up a particular page from item number 5 of the draft plan program update, rather, page 16 of that PDF. So that's the 2024 Title VI program update, page 16. And hopefully we can all see that. I really want to say, this is something that's great that SANDAG is monitoring how we're doing with regards to diversity issues and being inclusive. And if there's a chart on page 16, that's the same chart. It's a page I'm looking for in which it shows the participants of the various committees at SANDAG and their ethnicity. And I thought it was page 16. If you scroll down, maybe you could get to, keep on going down. It's a chart. And I don't want to take much more time. So if we can't find that chart, that's fine. I just want to note that on that chart, it shows that the participation various committees, subcommittees here at SANDAG is diverse in some areas, in other areas it's not. So, and then if you look at the bottom of that chart, thank you very much for pulling it up. It shows that in certain categories, particularly for Hispanic populations, where Hispanic population is a very large percentage of our population in our region, we don't have the kind of participation. In some committees, they don't even, they're not even there. So I just hope, I just want to make a note that I'm glad we're tracking, but we have ways to go to have participation for all elements of our community. That's my just comment, and I think this chart is very helpful in letting us know how we're doing. With that, I move the approval of the consent calendar.
I really appreciate that comment. I really do believe we need more of us elected because I can't chair everything.
Second, and with one revision and
Yes,
one
ma'am.
question. Under the attendance for the meeting, it says that I was not here, first of all. I was here. This is the second set of minutes that I'm not showing up at meetings, but I was here July 26th, promise. And then it says right by there, 9:40 to 12:56. There's some other people with times by their names. I don't know. What are we doing? Tracking when people arrive and leave now?
Which number is it?
Oh.
Which count? Which?
Certainly, the clerks do track the presence of the members simply because your bylaws require that board members be present for half of the meeting in order to receive their stipend.
Okay, that's great. But I was here the entire time, 9 o'clock until whenever we got to leave that day. So let's just make sure that we reflect that accurately. Thank you.
All right, with that, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no other comments, please vote. And you can use the little apparatus. What is this called? Voting. Please.
That motion passes with 16 yeses and 3 absences.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is our report from the fiscal year 2024 annual investigations. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Courtney Ruby, our independent performance auditor.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be back with all of you today. The first report we have is the annual investigation report. So the presentation is of our fiscal 2024 annual investigation report. The report is a summary of all activity received during fiscal year 2024 by OIPA related to fraud, waste, abuse, and gross mismanagement. The report provides a summary of OIPA's SR 125 investigation, an overview of the whistleblower hotline investigation process, the types of allegations submitted in fiscal year 24, allegations that warranted an investigation, and then it concludes with a summary of our investigation outcomes and actions taken. So I'll go through the introduction. I'm going to briefly touch on the OIPA initiated investigations, which is State Route 125, talk more about the whistleblower hotline purpose, investigation, referral process, summary, and results, and then I will take any questions. Per AB 805, the Office of the Independent Performance Auditor, which we affectionately call OIPA, is the official body of SANDAG to investigate potential fraud, waste, abuse, and gross mismanagement. Investigations can be initiated directly by myself or upon request by the Board of Directors or the Audit Committee, as well as complaints filed through the whistleblower hotline. In December 2023, myself, the Audit Committee, the Board Chair, and several board members determined that due to publicly disclosed allegations related to SR 125, that an investigation needed to be initiated. The purpose was to determine if SR 125 finances could be relied upon and determine the steps SANDAG took to rectify known errors with the customer accounts. We found that ETAN's fast lane financial reporting could not be relied upon and that the finance department lacked adequate internal controls to ensure SR 125 financial information is accurately recorded and reported. And we recommended an independent assessment of the finance department, which the board approved that recommendation, and that I will oversee that assessment. The outcome also included ETAN's BOS implementation. The finding was that ETAN's BOS implementation was headed for trouble from the beginning, and that SANDAG executives management failed to address the situation in a timely manner, including informing all of you, the board of directors. 10 recommendations were provided to the board of directors and to executive management. We are currently wrapping up a companion investigation requested by the board of directors and the audit committee to evaluate SANDAG's leadership knowledge of ETAN's performance issues, and that will be presented in October to the audit committee. I want to note that when I came on board, it was really important to me to bolster the whistleblower hotline program in the annual audit plan that I presented to you all in July that had been approved and forwarded on from the audit committee. 2 of the strategic goals are related to the whistleblower hotline program. One goal is the detection and deterrence of fraud, waste, and abuse, and that includes performing timely investigations in the areas of fraud, waste, abuse, and gross mismanagement, and prioritizing resources based on potential impact to the organization, the public, and stakeholders. Another goal in the annual audit work plan is the enhancement of the whistleblower hotline program. So in order to enhance it, we have to make sure that we're educating. So that's going out, making sure that the employees as well as the governance board is aware of the hotline and what we do, and then our results, which we're going over today. And we agreed to 3 outreach events, outreach activities for the employees, as well as working on an campaign for contractor outreach this year. Whoops. So the purpose of a whistleblower hotline is a safe and reliable way for SANDAG employees, contracted parties, members of the public, and other stakeholders to report allegations of fraud, waste, abuse, and gross mismanagement. So when we talk about those terms, it means any activity by a local agency or employee that is undertaken in the performance of the employee's official duties, including activities deemed outside of the scope of their employment, that is in violation of any local, state, or federal law or regulation relating to corruption, malfeasance, bribery, theft of government property, fraudulent claims, fraud, coercion, conversion, malicious prosecution, misuse of government property, or willful omission to perform duties, is economically wasteful or involves gross misconduct. So as you can see, it includes a large range of activities. In relation to investigation process referrals that can come, as I stated before, it can be submitted by myself, the board, the audit committee, or individuals, employees, and they can be submitted via email, the phone, or mailed complaint form. And we're working on right now of easing that process as well to make it easier to even have a mobile app where people can just go ahead and submit a complaint. And as we get out into the contractor world, that will be more important as well, to have a mobile way to submit complaints. Complaints can be anonymous, and the information is kept confidential unless we need to inform law enforcement. We do a preliminary analysis through 5 criteria, and the 5 criteria we look at is: first, did it involve SANDAG's property, infrastructure, employees, officials, contractors, or does it otherwise fall into OIPA's jurisdiction? Does it meet the criteria of fraud, waste, abuse, or gross management? Did it occur within the last year? Was sufficient information provided to initiate an investigation? And lastly, is the matter currently being litigated? Because we will not involve ourselves in litigation. In the fiscal year, we had 6 cases come in. We had 2 that were in the other category, which means it could be criminal activity, public nuisance, irresponsive, poor, or unfair customer service. We had 2 come in relation to misconduct or inappropriate behavior, 1 for hiring irregularities, and 1 for the misuse of assets. This gives you a feeling over time what the hotline program, the reporting that we've received as far as complaints. So when it was first initiated in 2022, there was upwards of 18 complaints. We had 6 complaints this year. One of the goals that I will be evaluated on is we want to increase double the number of reports up to at least 12 for this fiscal year. This gives you a summary. So we started the year with 8 cases in the queue. We received 6 more during this fiscal year. We closed 12 and we ended the year with 2 open cases. The cases were closed for various reasons. 2 complaints were not substantiated. 1 complaint had multiple allegations that were either not substantiated, refuted, or out of jurisdiction. 2 complaints were forwarded and closed after preliminary review to determine that it was not OIPA's jurisdiction, so they were sent to an outside agency or an internal department. 2 complaints were closed as they did not qualify as fraud, waste, or abuse, or gross mismanagement, or they didn't meet the criteria, or were in current litigation, lack sufficient information, occurred over a year, or were outside of the jurisdiction. And then 1 complaint was closed after preliminary review determined it was not a fraud, waste, and abuse, or gross mismanagement. However, OIPA will monitor the SANDAG work environment for similar complaints going forward. The hotline is always a good source to see what trends are going on because you can report anonymously. Sometimes employees feel very safe reporting things that are going on. They don't want to come in my office. They don't want to make a formal complaint, but they will go report anonymously. So if there's something bubbling over in the agency, it's a good way for us to immediately be informed of that. And that's why the employee outreach and making sure that we put more information out about the program is so important. So as we look ahead, I already spoke to this, that it is my desire to enhance the program to make sure that we are performing timely investigations. In order to curb bad actors, we need to be on top of it. What we know is that when we have a hotline, that those tips decrease the time that we catch fraudsters or we catch bad actors, or we just correct things internally that need to be corrected. We will initiate a standalone audit, investigation if it is of a significant issue. And that's what you saw in SR 125. If it is an item that is of less significance, we have the annual report, which you're looking at today. And in the back of the report, you'll see that there's a synopsis for every case. So if somebody complained about something, they can check the annual report to see what happened to the disposition of the case. So that's how we keep people informed. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions in relation to the report or today's presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to public comment, and then I'll come back to our board member comments and make sure board members, just a reminder, please use this. And if your name is not on there, I will call you. Just let me know.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And we have 4 public commenters on this item. Mark, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by allegedly Audra.
Yeah, I'd like to inform you now of a whistleblower complaint of gross abuse, waste, and mismanagement. As an example, the housing, 1,000 beds for $440 million over a 33-year period, instead of 3D printing 12,000 rooms and 2,600 watt e-scooters for $30 million. That's a $410 million difference. 30 million compared to 440 million. And the rooms will last well over 100 years, maybe hundreds of years, and can be transported to other communities in case they need to use them or borrow them or for LA or whatever after our problem is solved. Of course, nothing would totally solve the problem until inflation is stopped. But that's 12,000 rooms instead of 1,000 beds for $410 million less. Also, the idea of making the public pay 2/3, subsidize 2/3 of the rent as more and more people become homeless is absurd and unsustainable because you won't stop the federal.
Your time expired. Allegedly Audra, please come to the podium.
Just a reminder on these items, just make sure that these are items that are under the purview of our Office of Independent Performance Auditor, because I want to make sure we're staying focused.
We are staying focused, Nora. Thank you. So good. I would like to give this propaganda update just back to you, warm handoff, because it's funny that the reason why we're dealing with the SR 125 was due to it coming out in the press. So it was like, oh my gosh, we got to take care of that. I mean, if we don't, somebody's going to say something. And then you let the bad actors go, right? Like Hassan and Andre. It's good. Just let the people responsible retire and whatnot and just collect money. It's good. And then we just fire Lauren Warren, right, for coming forward with it. So it's like, how is there any trust for anybody to come forward with anything if somebody got fired and nothing gets done about that? And then they have to file lawsuits about that. It's good. It shows like how well you guys can be trusted to deal with things because you should be holding accountable the bad actors that you talk about in your thing. And what happened with that? Nothing, right? Because they got to retire, right? So it's like, who are you going to hold accountable for that?
Alderbold, please go ahead. You'll be followed by the final commenter, phone number 672. You're self-muted.
Okay, let's see. I hoped we'd get a real audit and current investigation status. After all, we're paying our taxes for this, and we should know if there's an abuse. It's really awfully telling that SANDAG has no respect for the people, that the audit committee meeting was canceled with not even a draft status report after presenting an ambitious audit schedule at the last meeting. We should know if there are still crooks at SANDAG. Maybe we'll know after this meeting. One matter mentioned was the SR 125 toll scandal. The report says that reporting was inaccurate from the beginning. I don't know how many contractors were inaccurate, by the way. But how long was this? I mean, was it like the beginning 6 years ago, 7 years ago? Anyway, it disturbs me.
Your time expired. Our next commenter, phone number 672, please go ahead.
Okay, so whistleblower hotline. This again, what a joke. I mean, haven't we already been through this? Whistleblower protection, all for show, all to save face from the people who have lost faith in the purposely flawed, corrupt system. Government investigating government. What could possibly go wrong? This local board and other boards within our county are so desperate to gain back the trust of the people. Well, too late. The people don't trust you, and these local corrupt line leaders continue to try and mislead and manipulate the hard-working, tax-paying citizens. It's sad. It's really sad. What's really sad is that the county citizens aren't more outraged. I mean, outraged enough to show up and speak up. It's really sad, but we'll keep coming back and beating the drum.
And Chairwoman, I do have one final commenter on this item. Truth, please come to the podium.
Thank you. Courtney, what if those running the show are all bad actors? Jacobus claimed no money's been lost on the 125 toll fiasco, which is misinformation. There was millions in lost revenue, staff time, and on months worth of audit reports. But if everything was just fine, then why the heck was Resilient Ray Major flattened? Why was Lauren the whistleblower fired? Why was Andre allowed to retire? Why did Kirk take his cue? And why was Colleen the smartest of everybody? The reality is that there's been toll idiots asleep at the wheel. Too many of you ate up every word Hassan sold like suckers. The complaint summary shows that those multi-million-dollar bike lanes for the rich 1% are causing the audit team to work harder while exposing SANDAG to litigation. Why was that hiring irregularity from 2023 ignored just because it wasn't within 1 year? What is OIPA's monitoring for bullying behavior and a toxic work environment on June 25th consist of? What are the real tangible solutions? I demand real punishments, ban Sean from all meetings, put Nora in timeout, stipend deduction, something. Where is the independent performance evaluation auditor? Without a balanced captain with direction, SANDAG will remain a sinking ship like it has been
Your
from the
time
beginning.
expired, and that concludes the public comments on item 9.
Thank you. Before I go to member comments, there's no screen. There you go. All right, council member.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank and express my gratitude to OIPA and your staff for your thorough work on this analysis. Transparency and accountability are essential to fostering the trust required to manage an organization of this size and significance. Any changes in procedures that reduce or eliminate the potential for even the appearance of improper handling of funds are greatly appreciated. I'd like to remind this board that this referral arose from concerns, as previously mentioned, about improper systems and a lack of transparency related to SR 125 tolling operations. One of the firms identified as in OIPA's report was a major contractor for SR 125, with issues such as charging higher than approved rates, insufficient documentation, missing approval signatures, which we all know by now. These findings reinforce the urgency, and I have to emphasize an urgency, of removing the tool on SR 125 as soon as possible to address the inequitable burden it places on the city I represent, Chula Vista. Over 80% of trips on SR 125 either start or end in our city, disproportionately impacting our residents. I thank this board for approving the environmental analysis and equity studies. And as I have mentioned before, once we open the 125, there are many, many people. I even had a conversation with a congressman that says he makes it a point to avoid tolls because he finds them offensive. And when we think about how much we're going to cut down the wait times on 805 and the 5 and cut down on pollution, we have to consider this as a holistic solution. Thank you.
Mayor Minto, sorry for the record.
Thanks. You know, when I think about it, the problem really isn't that there was a issue with the 125 and the funding. Fact that, you know, there's some mismanagement and fraud and things of that occurred. That's not really the problem. Problem is that our staff didn't have the confidence in management to be able to come forward and talk about it openly, that there was something wrong. It's a shame that we have to have an independent auditor looking into all these things, other than, you know, looking into how we can be more efficient. Because if Mario, you and your new staff, whoever's here, you have to have the ability to have trust, your staff trust you. And because loyalty doesn't just go up the ladder, loyalty has to come down the ladder. And I think if everybody believes that their voice is heard and they can be trusted that you're going to take care of the right business, I mean, it could be the most simple thing. And if I can't come to you and say, Mario, we have a problem. Can we look into fixing this? Or there's a more efficient way of doing something, and you retaliating against me because I pointed out that somebody in maybe a decision-making position did something that could have been better, then we're always going to have an independent auditor. We're always going to have somebody who's afraid to talk. We're always going to have somebody in the audience that is critical of the fact that there is no trust, no loyalty, and, you know, with an organization. So that to me is, it's great to have the report, but the report is only pointing out the fact that we have to do better in the future. Let's correct what was happened in the past and move on and do the right thing in the future. And that's really all I have to say, that you can't get any more simple than that, in my opinion.
Thank you. Councilmember Shu.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to point out my thanks. I'm going to go back up a little bit. My thanks that we have AB 805, we would not have an independent auditor if it wasn't for that piece of legislation. So I think that's important. I can't think of very many. I don't know of any local cities, the county that has a completely independent auditor that reports directly to the management board with issues looking for fraud, waste, abuse, mismanagement. So I think we are extremely fortunate to have that at SANDAG. And of course, looking for fraud, abuse, mismanagement doesn't mean that you necessarily have it. In the past, the media unfortunately reported in that way. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. Just having that in the title of agenda item doesn't mean that it's there. In fact, it means that it's probably not there if the report comes back that nothing was found. And I just want to make another added comment on all this. You know, none of us, in fact, no one at SANDAG is going to talk about personnel issues. We cannot. So I hope the public realizes that we are not going to say anything about any of our employees in the past. We cannot do it publicly. We can't even talk about it amongst ourselves. With that, I want to comment on the great report from Courtney. I find your report easier to understand and read. I appreciate outlining each of the complaints and what the status is. I think that's, and also your report on the number of complaints, how many are coming. And I really like the idea that you're looking for more reports, right? Not that you're looking for more work, but you want to make sure that people we don't get into the situation in which people don't report. So you want that open door. So I find that really rewarding. And I want to commend you again for your quick response when you first got here at SANDAG. You turned around some reports extremely quickly, probably before you came in the front door. So thank you very much for doing that. And thank you for this report. And I think we just need to remember that if you find something, that you don't hesitate coming to us, asking for a closed session if need be, and keeping that door open. I think we want to make sure that our door is open for you. And other than that, I really want to thank you for being with us, being here at SANDAG, moving down here from beautiful Northern California, and being part of our team.
Thank you. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Courtney, for that report. I do find that it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of issues that we had that you explained to us, but I appreciate the way you labeled it out and let us know specifically what it was. I guess my thing is, so this does not belittle your work at all, but in my head, I'm thinking, okay, so then now what? Or how does it compare? Or how are we doing against other metropolitan planning organizations? I mean, kind of trying to drill down into specifics of what we're going to do differently so that it increases, I think one of the council members says, transparency for the public, but also, as Mayor Mento reflected, just the staff so that they feel like they're empowered to be able to expose some of the things that are going on. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Councilmember. In this phase, this is the first report that we've put forward in relation to the annual investigation report. We did put the past numbers, and I really appreciate where you're going. I am a big fan of benchmarking. And as I look to the other MPOs, as far as what they're doing, I'm not aware that anybody else has an independent audit function. But I can certainly bring some of that information. I think that when we look specifically to this organization, I think following our trends, that's why it's so important to be able to report things anonymously or not, right? So that we know what's going on here. The more, and I really appreciate what Councilmember Hsu said as well, is like that people understand this is an independent office. And the more that we can ensure the employees of that and that retaliation will not be tolerated, that you can bring forth a complaint, then we're going to get better information. When we have better information, then we can do those investigations and then bring forth what are the issues. So right now, I think we're going to see, we are pushing for more reports. We want people to bring things that are troubling to them, to us. And so next year's report I would anticipate would be more revealing. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It'll just tell us what's happening in the organization. And to your point, I will, and my team will look at other agencies that we can bring some benchmarking to you on.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And again, I'm just, that's just my brain, but you did amazing work, and I just want to give you kudos for that.
Thank you. Councilman Moreno?
First and foremost, thank you, Ms. Ruby, for all the great work that you have done this past year. Obviously, there were some very shocking findings. There were some shocking findings. And as the chair of the City of San Diego's Audit Committee, it's not often that you find shocking revelations, but when you, that's why we are here essentially, right? Is when an agency is going in the wrong direction, the audit committee or the auditor brings to light the issues and brings it to the board or the governing body, and we rectify it right away. Oftentimes, people get offended. They don't want this to be out in the open. I believe in transparency, and I believe that it is the right for the public to know the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. It is their right to know. At the end of the day, these are tax dollars that we're working on, right? So they have every right to know. The 125 continues to be concerning to me. And I want to quote, the investigation found ETAN's fast lane financial reporting cannot be relied upon, and that the financial department lacks adequate internal controls, including proper review and supervision to ensure that SR 125 financial information is accurately recorded and reported. The report recommends an independent assessment of the financial department's policies, procedures, and practices. My question to you is, when will we be seeing that report?
Thank you for that question. So the process to issue the RFP is a little slower than anticipated, and that's with our workload. That's not saying that anybody wasn't helping to get that out. The positive of that is I think that we're going to be able to provide you an analysis of what the new team is putting in place so that you're going to have an added level of assurance. So the investigation already found that there wasn't adequate internal controls. Now with this new team, you'll have an evaluation of, are things being put in place to rectify those? So I think that's the blessing of it being later. I anticipate with issuing the RFP, which is not out yet, and then getting the report, I was hopeful that we'd get it by January, but I think we're probably going to be in the March or April timeline to bring that in front of you.
March or April to bring the report back to us.
Correct.
With your recommendations on policies and procedures and practices.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And I just want to note for the record that even before Ms. Ruby's audit, I voted no to continue the contract with tolling the 125, and I stand very firm on my vote. So with that, thank you. Also, the whistleblower hotline is tremendously important for our agency, and I thank you for that part of it, and I look forward to the work that you will be doing for the next year. Are you planning to show us some of the audits that you're doing for next year?
We did bring that annual work plan in front of you, but we'll resend it to you. And then if you have questions about it, we can set up a time.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate your work, and I thank you, Chair, for the time.
All right, that was an informational item. I see no other comments from my colleagues, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next item, so that we're going to have a discussion on item number 10, which is the contracts, invoicing, payment process, audit, and management response. I'm going to ask Courtney to provide the report.
Thank you. Today I'm going to be presenting the contracts, invoice, and payment process audit. Again, I am the IPA, the Independent Performance Auditor. I'm joined here with my team today. Everyone had a part in this audit. The Deputy Performance Auditor, Lloyd Carter, as well as Crystal Crescenza, Christopher Delgado, and Michael Ryan, who are CFEs. Who Michael's a CFE, and these are associate independent auditors. And I would be remiss that I did not mention Doug DePete, who is a principal performance auditor on the last whistleblower and investigation report, as he is the whistleblower program manager. So I apologize on that, Doug. So in relation to this audit, everyone had a hand in it. Typically, this is just a kind of a roadmap comment that in a large audit, you will find an executive summary. If it is not a large audit, and this is not, I do not consider this as far as a number of pages, a large audit, I will be communicating to you an executive summary comments in that transmittal. I really want to put on your radar right away, what the issues are, what you should focus in on, because I know sometimes you are reviewing multiple reports and with all the jobs that you hold, as well as the public. So this transmittal letter identifies that we completed this audit of the contract invoicing and payment processes for the period ended July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2023. This was in response to the significant audit issues that were identified in contracts audit 1 and 2 that was brought before you in the previous OIPA reports. So due to the risks that were there, it was important to go in and look at invoice and payments. The objective of this was to determine the effectiveness of SANDAG's review and approval controls over contract invoicing and payments. The audit findings include invoices processed without sufficient supporting documentation, invoice rates not matching approved contract rates, finance records missing documentation, and invoices missing approval signatures. The most concerning finding is that invoices totaling $13 million, or 32% of the sample we looked at, did not include sufficient documentation to determine what work was completed by contractors. So I'm going to dig into that more in a minute. Management agrees with all 7 recommendations, and after I complete my presentation, then management will give you theirs. And so it is important to point out that OIPA did the Contracts 1 audit and the Contracts 2 audit, and then we came in and did this focused invoicing and payment process audit. So the recommendations are similar because the team management was still working on implementing. We are currently in the field right now doing a rigorous follow-up recommendation report. So that means that we'll be bringing forth to the audit committee in October and you all shortly after where management stands on the recommendations from the contracts audit 1 and 2. Just know that these recommendations are similar, so we would anticipate a similar response. So the introduction, finding 1, we already talked about insufficient supporting documentation, finding 2, invoice rates versus approved rates, finding 3, missing records, finding 4, missing approval signatures. I already stated the performance period was July 19th through 2023 in June. This is a part of the board-approved risk-based audit plan. And we consider risk both from a qualitative and a quantitative. The objective was to determine that SANDAG reviews and review and approval controls are effective over the contract invoicing and payment process. We selected 5 contractors. How did we do that? We did that from going back to the October 14th report that was issued, which was part 1. And we selected these 5 contractors. They were selected based on the biggest change, highest dollar increase in contract value. So we looked at WSP, PGH Wong, HNTB, JPM, and ACOM. And then you'll see the difference, dollar difference, and then the percentage change on the right. What we know that anyone any organization that is entrusted with public funds must ensure that those public funds are properly spent for the intended purposes. SANDAG must use internal policies and procedures in administering the process of invoicing and payments to do that, and must adhere to all applicable state and federal laws as well as the rules and regulations imposed by various funding agencies. SANDAG must also appropriately manage projects to ensure that the budgets and timelines are adhered to. Public funds are spent accordingly in accordance with contract terms, and that invoices are reviewed to verify completion of work prior to payment. So we looked at almost in the population for these 5 contractors over the audit period that we looked at was 1,700 invoices. We did a random sample of 423. So those 1,700 invoices totaled 92 million. Our sample size selected was 34 million. And you can see that in the chart. I want to make a note here. We had an expanded scope for H&TB from 2019 through 2023. We reduced the scope on WSP, PGH, JPM, and ACOM. Why we did that is because we find that I want to make sure that we're bringing the most relevant information to you. That doesn't mean that you have to have a long scope. It does mean that you need to look at in the most recent audit periods to bring forth the information of what's working and what's not. So that change was implemented already. We had already started H&TB. That's why there's a difference in the scope. What are project managers supposed to do? So they're responsible for important components of the contract invoice and payment process. They need to review invoices for fraudulent charges, timeliness and accuracy, allowable cost, consistency with the contract terms, and acceptability of contractors' work. They also need to confirm that invoices adhere to the contractual requirements and are approved and signed off on, and then submit those invoices to their manager or director for approval before it is submitted to finance. Finance then gets it and completes several levels of review of the request documents that are submitted prior to entering the request into the accounting system and issuing payments. So we identified 4 findings. Insufficient supporting documentation was 33% of the issues we identified. 3% was that the invoice rate didn't match the approved rate. There was missing records on 1.42% and then missing approvals on 4 out of the 423. So when we look at the invoices paid with insufficient supporting documentation, this is the 13 million. Again, this is not this is consistent with the prior audits, and what we found that documentation outlining the work that was performed was not provided. Time cards were missing or incomplete. There was missing documentation of subcontractor work. Project managers were not consistent in requesting itemized or detailed summary of work performed from contractors to include in the invoices. And we did find a discrepancy in the standard service agreement language regarding invoice requirements was inconsistent that SANDAG needed to rectify, and they did have rectified that. We had 2 recommendations for this finding, and we recommended that contracts and procurement department provide annual training for project managers on what is required for invoices based on the updated standard service agreement and the task order requirement, and that this training should ensure that project managers validate the work. So it's one thing to say that you need it, but we need to ensure that our team members are then making sure that there's adequate verification of that. We also recommended that finance department update their accounts payable procedures to include requiring supporting documentations consistent with the standard services agreement and task order submitted. Invoiced rates were not the same as approved rates. We found this in 14 of the 423. So what project managers did not exercise the due diligence in reviewing the invoices to the most current fee schedule or the master rate table. We found it more issues in the current fee schedule, that contracts did a good job of updating the master rate table. That's more like an Excel spreadsheet, so it gets updated. And then, however, if it was in a contract amendment, that's where we found more of the instances, and we make recommendations to address that. We also found that the department does not have procedures dictating where and how the fee schedules and approval changes should be managed and centrally located. So we want to make sure that the department knows the procedure is going to one place and updating it accordingly, and then it's being verified. So we had two recommendations for the contracts and procurement department here. First, create a procedure to manage, track, and store rate and fee schedule approvals and changes in one file location to ensure that the verification can occur easily. And then secondly, provide fee schedule training annually to procurement staff and project managers to ensure fee schedule alignments with contract needs and project managers can efficiently, effectively track them. Missing records. So we had 6 missing records out of the 423 that we looked at. And in all cases, we identified, this is in relation to finance. So finance has a specific procedure that they require. It's a proof of completed batch review or a proof of payment was not documented for a check. As we move into the ERP environment, this is a non-issue because that'll be automatically included in the ERP issue. And also finance did not exercise due diligence to ensure the proper record keeping was maintained for their payments. One recommendation here, because like I said, the one point is mute. The other is we just want to remind finance staff to follow their own policies and procedures, and if it needs to be updated to do that. This is the last finding, missing approval signatures. So 4 out of the 423 were missing a signature. That was in relation to $115,000. And what we found was that at least one signature was missing. We did identify, and sometimes that the project manager could be the director. So we made a recommendation to say that there is always 2 signatures. If it happens to be a director that's a project manager, then kick it up to the executive team to be the second signature. We found that finance did not exercise the due diligence to reject the invoices when it did not have the proper authorization. We recommend finance personnel and project managers receive adequate training to make sure that they're doing this. And as I just stated, we make sure that there's 2 signatures. Many of the recommendations, as I said in my introduction, parallel with the contracts Part 1 that was issued on October 14th, 2022, and Part 2 in 2023, the creation of standard operating procedures to provide instructions on entering and processing invoices with all necessary supporting documentation. The verification of work. We need to make sure that what we're paying for, we've verified. The inclusion of a detailed itemization of work prior to processing payments, and then regular training to contract and procurement staff, project managers, and finance personnel to maintain those. We are out in the field, and we're wrapping this up right now for the recommendation follow-up. So you will have a sense of how management is doing in response to those recommendations from the previous contracts audit 1 and 2, and those will be similar to the issues that have been brought up in this audit. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mario.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to thank Courtney and her team for all the work that they're doing. They are really setting a good benchmark for us for improvement. We take the findings very seriously, and we have begun corrective actions. Many of the recommendations, like Courtney mentioned, are similar to the contracts audit action plan. So we have already started with that, and you will be seeing also structural organizational changes in the agency that are going to be focused on contracts and program project management. And you heard that project managers needed to be more in a level playing field or apart. So you will be seeing that, those structural changes. We have Kelly and Kimberly who will be providing more detail on how we're doing and on our response to it. But we really look forward to continue working with OIPA on this and other subjects. They've been, I'll be quite honest, through my 2 months or 3 months, I can't remember now, OIPA has been a backbone supporting on this transition into the agency. So thank you. I'll pass it on to Kelly and Kimberly.
Thank you so much and good afternoon, Board. I'm Kelly McKyle, the Director of Contracts and Procurement Services, and I am presenting this morning along with Kimberly Trammell, the Director of Finance and Accounting. Again, I'd like to just reiterate that in our management response, we accepted all the findings and we look forward to continuing to work with OIPA to improve processes and practices to ensure that funds are properly spent for the intended public purposes. Agenda item 10B is the proposed management action plan outlining 7 total recommendations and actions we intend to take. For finding 1, I am happy to report that the work outlined in both proposed actions is well underway based on the recommendations in the contracts audit action plan. Boilerplate contract templates have already been updated to require our consultants to submit detailed itemized invoices with adequate supporting documentation. Work is already in progress to implement a robust support infrastructure to assist project managers with effective contract administration activities. Training materials and procedures are currently in development, and it is expected that annual training on invoice processing will commence this month. Project managers will be trained on what consultants are contractually required to submit to support invoices, how to review that documentation, and how to confirm deliverables or milestones were met before approving an invoice for payment. We are also developing a consistent invoice checklist across the agency that will guide our staff in this task. Additionally, Kim and I plan to work together to ensure that accounts payable procedures are in line with the invoice and supporting documentation requirements in our agreement and task order templates. There are 2 proposed actions for finding 2, and again, I'm happy to report that the work to satisfy these 2 items is already underway. Senior leadership within my team are currently working on centralizing the rate and fee schedules in a single location on our SharePoint site and developing procedures to update those when amendments are executed. Training on how to find the rate and fee schedules and how to utilize them will be provided to project managers beginning in December. So that's more of a formal training process. However, I do want to mention that we do pass this information on to project managers and staff when the contract or task order is executed at our contract kickoff meeting. So there's been more of a focus on how they should continue to check their rate schedules each and every time they get an invoice to process. And now I will turn it over to Kimberly.
Good afternoon. As was mentioned in Courtney's presentation, most of these audit items happened before the new ERP financial system was implemented. So this audit finding is actually addressed with the implementation of that new system. All of the records are maintained in that system and accessible in the future. So to address this finding, we proposed a regular cadence of reviewing and updating the account payable procedures. The finance department is already going through its policies and procedures to bring them into alignment with the new ERP system, and will reflect this change as we are making the other changes. And then following this significant update, a regular review of the policy and procedure schedule will be established. On the 4th set of findings, the invoice processing involves numerous employees across the organization that are responsible for different pieces of that process, including documentation, review, approvals, and issuing of the payment. To respond to this finding, we will be updating procedures to clarify the roles and responsibilities in the vendor payment process, so all involved parties are aware of these requirements. As Kelly mentioned, we have a training coming up this month that will discuss these roles and responsibilities. In the new financial system, accounts payable approvals are automated. So the signatures that we were looking for in this audit are actually part of the system. So there has to be 2 approvals in the system. The rules of the system will ensure that appropriate approvals are in place before an invoice is paid, as well as additional guidance will be provided as part of the training for the unusual situations referenced in number 2, where we might need an additional approver. So that process will be explained and provided during the training. This concludes our update. More details can be found in agenda item 10B, and we're happy to answer any questions.
We're welcome with any questions of the staff. As you can see, we've taken this very seriously. Like item second, that rare occasion is when sometimes the supervisor is on vacation or they're the project contract manager or project manager. So it's finding those checks and balances. And so we're working towards it. We have implemented all these items and we welcome any questions.
Before I go to comments from our members, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to the public.
Thank you. For public comments, I have 4 in person and 2 virtual. Mark, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by allegedly Audra.
I'd like to expound a little on my 3D printing idea. There could be 12 million 3D printed rooms. It would take up about 1/7 of Fiesta Island, which is surrounded by a moat, the bay, to separate it from residents who otherwise might be upset. 12,000 will fit on 1/7 of the island, and e-scooters, 2,600 watt e-scooters, will not overwhelm the transit hubs. There can be multiple restrooms and eating areas and solar charging areas, similar to Hermit Gulch Campground, restroom and showers on Catalina Island, where they have one building that might have 8 or 10 restrooms. Or they could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, putting 3D rooms on southern border with 20-foot high razor sharp back walls. They can snap together and they're mobile. Motion sensors and cameras can also house Border Patrol families, and agents can contact other agents within a 5-mile radius or contact the military. County workers can help them get jobs, that bank accounts, and reintegrate back into society. That's 12,000 rooms for about 12 mil. 8 by
Your
12,
time
so they're mobile,
expired.
12,000.
Please keep your comments related to the Office of the Independent Performance Audit and or the management's corrective action plan. Allegedly, Audra, you'll be followed by Truth.
If you have any items that you want the Office of Independent Counting to get, please go ahead and give it to the security so that she can make sure that the clerk gets the information, and then she'll hand it over to OIPA, okay? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nora. So nice. It's just sad because it's like there's so many excuses as to why much of this fraud, waste, and abuse is going on. And again, the culprits are no longer here. So, I mean, obviously it may not take place, but it's a wonder why this was happening. It's weird that you have a mask on now. That just really threw me off. Why, like what are the connections as to what the money that was actually had changed and there was more given than was contracted? Nora, can you pay attention to the people? That would be nice. Yeah, probably not. But yeah, so what is going on with that? Are they, what were the reasons for that? You're never going to find out unless you actually ask the people that are responsible for that. And Andre was responsible for the financial department. So you should be asking him these questions. It shouldn't come up that, we're bringing this forward without actually talking to the people
On
that are
your time
responsible.
expired. Truth, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Cesar Javier and then Paul the Bold.
All right, it's already another failure. Nora failed to say if 10A and TB were even combined, And Mario, you said transitioning to what? Why did it take 3 months for this information to be presented to the board? I consider that gross mismanagement, or Zito was too busy eating pizza, I understand. How do you have about 1/3 of all sampled SANDAG contracts missing records to find out what work was even done? With payments that don't match how much somebody like HNTB or WSP was actually paid? Who benefited? Where is the accountability? Prison for those guilty project managers is the only solution for that fraud, waste, and mismanagement. The weak management response from Mario even looks like somebody else signed for him. The response says, store rate and fee services approvals and changes in one file location. How many locations are finance documents currently in? Is SANDAG that backwards of an agency that they don't store files on a computer system where everything's easily accessible? Then it says the accounting and finance team will implement a regular cadence for reviewing and updating procedures and communicating changes to employees. How about do it monthly? especially if SANDAG management was blaming turnover rates and the training and communicating should be regular. And somebody buy SANDAG a calculator, figure it out.
Cesar Javier, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Paul the Bold and the final commenter, phone number
I cannot
672.
speak that fast. Cesar Javier. Thank you, SANDAG. Thank you, investigators. This is a laudable presentation and I am learning. And I'm going to apply this to what we have experienced from the city, county, and the air pollution control district. I said a while ago, air pollution control district must be decommissioned.
I'm going to ask you to, can you please focus on the agenda item, sir?
Yes, ma'am. This is parallel to it. And this is an antibiotic for air pollution control district. It must be disbanded, decommissioned. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And as we journey to find a solution for toxicity prevailing in our community, this is it. Disbanded. Your
time has expired. Our next commenter, Paul the Bold, followed by the final commenter, phone number 672. Paul, please go ahead.
Yes, the screen says we're on item 13B. Is this an error? I don't see any 13B on the agenda. Maybe that's why there are so many supposedly off-topic comments. You know, it sounds a lot of things that management is doing, like specifying what an invoice should have, are, first of all, little logical things that everyone should know already, but then, you know, they're like what should have been done to begin with. I mean, we've heard time and time again, like even the prior audit mentioned all these things. I mean, we need action, contracts revised, people fired and not just removed. I mean, you know, they're just going to go back and contribute to all this corruption mix right over again.
When your time expired, our final commenter, phone number 672, please go ahead. You are self-muted.
Okay, so yeah, Mr. Sissa, don't be too quick to thank them. And yep, Paul, they only listen in to see if we're off topic. So regarding the audit and my evaluation of this board is, yeah, you all need to be on suspension or fired. And as far as the climate action plan, first question, besides Shu, who I already know, who here that promotes this climate action propaganda plan, the bus, trolley, or bike to the meeting today? Anyone? Yeah. Anyways, that's all I got.
And that concludes the public comments on this item.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn over to member comments. Our first one is Councilmember Liz Medina.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair Vargas. Thank you so much, Ms. Courtney Ruby, and also our management folks here, Ms. Kelly, Ms. Kimberly. I really appreciate this item today. The information is rich and valuable. The granularity and the detail here is exactly what I am interested in hearing. As far as documentation, my background is in biotech, and I worked in a GMP environment, which is good manufacturing procedures, and we had to document everything. And every single action required 2 signatures. And this was for the purposes of passing an FDA audit. For background, this was for we were making investigational new drugs that go through clinical trials. And so even if I was taking a volume from one container, pouring it into another, that required 2 signatures. So I think we're going in the right direction. And it's the piece I find the most valuable here is this is now in light, it's in writing, it's documented, it's presented, it's recorded. There will be no excuses moving forward for missing documentation or missing signatures. So I really appreciate this effort. I think it is my hope that down the line, it produces more faith in this organization, more ability to trust what is happening here. So I really appreciate this. And then lastly, even in social media, if you don't take a picture and put it up and post it somewhere, it didn't happen. So maybe, if you're not thinking about it on the laboratory side of things, maybe think about it on the social media side of things. It's got to be documented. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellent job. Thank you for this. I know at certain levels of management, we have people do Form 700s. Do the program managers, are they required to do Form 700s? Do you know?
Amberlyn, can you?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
May I respond, Chair?
At certain levels of management in the public sector, people are required to do Form 700s. Are program managers required to do Form 700s?
They are. So annually, you approve your conflict of interest code, and that dictates who within the agency is required to make the Form 700 disclosures and in which categories. And so what that includes are people within the agency who have responsibility for contractor oversight and selection, including project managers.
Okay, well, that takes care of my question. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Maxon.
Thank you for the great report. I've done accounts payable in the past. With a more than 32% failure to follow the process for accounts payable, I'm going to assume that there are some overpayments of taxpayer dollars. And in recommendations 1 through 7, I did not see a plan for recovery or potential recovery of taxpayer dollars. Is there overpayment out there? And how would we know if documentation was not done correctly? Is there a plan for this? Thank you.
Thank you. So when we evaluated the invoice payments, this would be with the project managers and contracting, whether the information was there, then it was passed on for payment. So we're seeing insufficient documentation and it's passed on for payment. We would have to drill down further in relation to determine, was the work done or not done? These procedures did not go to evaluating whether everything, going back with the project managers, that would have been a different audit. This was looking to see, based on their procedures, are they following their procedures? Is the supporting documentation there? So in order to quantify that, that would be a different audit.
All right, Mayor Kentz.
Yes, thank you. It's a little bit dismaying to read so many of your reports which reflect so poorly on the practices that this agency has been operating under. And this is certainly another one of those. The challenge of being a contract agency is significant, especially given the dollar amounts that SANDAG contracts for. But ultimately, there's no excuse for some of the problems that have been identified. And when it comes to managing contracts, we are certainly dependent upon the contractors doing their part correctly. And so when I look at table 3 of identified audit issues and I see the invoice rates versus approved rates were off 14 times, it does make me wonder, it was just 2 contractors, HNTB and AECOM. But what contractual mechanism do we have to recover the additional cost to our internal, either project managers, accounting department, or whatever, whoever has to reject or monitor to make sure everything's being done properly, it definitely adds to the expense. If 137 invoices were submitted with insufficient supporting documentation, that is costing the agency money in order to identify that and to create, kicking it back. It just, to me, just reeks of inadequate controls in our contracts. Because perhaps there's no way of pushing back and putting on the contractor the additional costs that their poor documentation is costing the agency. And so the point I'm trying to make is that maybe we need to review whether our contracts have provisions which set forth the contractor compensating SANDAG for the efforts that go into correcting their mistakes. And I don't know this, we are not the only agency that has these sort of responsibilities. So perhaps this is something that's been invented by somebody else. Perhaps it's in the contracts. I don't know. But it's just mind-boggling to look at these table 2 and table 3 and consider just how much extra effort has been created. It also makes me wonder whether it's time for 100% audit to see if if there were 14 invoices that didn't have the approved rates, how much money is sitting on the table that we may have paid over the rates that were contractually committed to. So I don't know,
Mayor.
if it's a
So let me ask you a question. So as I was reviewing this information and conversations that I've also had with our CEO around this, I think there's an organizational management issue as well, right? So
Yes.
and I think that's part of the work that he is doing now and what he's going to come back and share. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I want to just make sure because as soon as he got hired, that was one of the concerns that I had, including some policies that other entities like ours actually have in terms of contracting, the amounts of how much we're able to spend or not, how do you hold people accountable? There's a lot of other best practices that I think that we are able to incorporate, and including from the agencies that he has come from, Caltrans. And so I think that it's a combination, right? So OIPA is bringing the problem, and and management is looking at it. But I think the part for us is making sure that in the report that Mario brings back to us as a board about the organizational structures, the changes that we'll take in the organizational structure actually addresses some of these, including the project management piece, right? I think one of the reasons that we've seen SR 125 and some of these other issues not be addressed to the level that they should have been is there was no real project management and or who is responsible for the accountability piece. It's kind of, we're going to move this person, now we're going to move that person, and everybody's doing a lot of really great work. But in the end, you need accountability and be able to be efficient, and that those reports need to be able to be brought back to the board, to the executive team, their leadership, and then to us as well. And so I guess what I'm trying to say to you is that I feel like yes to all of that, what you've said. I agree with you 1,000%. And I think that there is not only the management report back about, look, this is what we're doing now, but there's a bigger picture about the organizational management of this particular agency and recommendations that the CEO has to bring back to inform us how this is going to get addressed. So it's institutional change that we're making, not just Band-Aids of fixing one thing or another.
Yes, and I agree with what you said, and I also agree that it is the CEO's responsibility to fix this. But when reading, my thought is, do we need more help in the departments that review these documents? But if our contractors are submitting schlock invoices that are inadequate and unacceptable, that's costing the agency money that I want to be able to recover from the contractors, so that they understand that there will be a price to be paid on their end for submitting invoices that are inadequate and unacceptable. And so, it just, to me, that's the main thing that I want to convey is that I hope this board takes super seriously the responsibility for protecting taxpayer dollars, and everything that the OIPA has been,
Highlighting.
reporting to us clearly suggests that management hasn't been fulfilling the obligations of fiduciary duties that we have to the public.
Yeah, no, point well taken, and especially the point you're making of creating some sort of a checks and balances, then that if a contractor is just being not good submitting the information, that doesn't mean that that's all where the problem is, right? That a lot is on this side of the street. So we need to work on our side of the street with the ERP, the checks and balances, the reorganization, but also looking into contracts and saying, hey, after you have submitted once, twice, 3 times, I think you need to start paying our administrative fees. So we can look into that for future contracts. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Gasterland.
Yeah, thank you. I have 2 questions. When did the new financial system go into effect?
The financial piece went into effect January 2nd of this year.
Okay, so and how has it been going? Have you seen corrections already, given that this audit was for prior to 2024?
So there's a number of controls in the system that are an improvement upon the process that was there before. It's a learning curve for everybody in the organization, so it hasn't been without its bumps, but you do definitely see an improvement in the internal controls function.
Great, thank you. My second question is for Ruby. In table 2, the sampled invoices, maybe we could show that. I'm wondering about the approach that you took. 100% of JPM was sampled and 19.6% of HNTB. So I'm wondering what the rationale was that led to 50% of the value for PGH Wong and AECOM to be sampled, 100% of JPM, and then the smaller percentages of the others. Basically, what was the sampling criteria?
It was a judgmental sample is how the team pulled it. And I can definitely confer with Lloyd Carter, the deputy IPA, to give greater clarification on the sampling.
Yeah, and I guess this goes to a concern. I'll appreciate the clarification that when you sampling can, if you sample again, you may not come up with the same answer. So, bootstrapping, is one way to do this kind of sampling. So I'd look forward to additional clarification.
The sampling size for 100% for.
Can you hold the mic a little bit closer because we can't hear you, please?
The sampling for JPM was at 100% because it wasn't a lot. Because since it was just 87, we just tested all of it. However, what we did on our sampling was just random. We did take the top contractor's invoice, and then we make sure that we covered every contractor, every contract. So for HNTB, WSP, PGH Wong, we covered all the contracts that were there. But for the ones that have a very small invoice number, we went ahead and tested 100%.
Okay. Although, 87 for JPM, I'm going to push back on that just a little bit with the chair's permission. So 87 out of 87 were looked at for JPM, 77 out of 231 invoices for Wong, 75 out of 224 for AECOM. So what you just said does make sense. However, given the discovery, if you will, of 32%, nearly a third, having incomplete documentation, perhaps there may be merit in sampling again some smaller number from each of the 5. Well, I guess you don't have to do JPM anymore. They're fully sampled. But from each of the other 4 and asking, does that 32% hold up? or is it actually a little bit more? And I would wonder about trends. Do smaller invoices tend to have less documentation? The larger invoices are more completely documented. Those are the kinds of questions that would be sensible follow-up questions. And that would also follow up on what Mayor Krantz was asking about.
Thank you, Terry, for the question. So in a performance audit, we're really going in to look, is the system working or is it not working? And when we evaluate this, we looked at large invoices, we looked at small invoices, right? But the takeaway when you look at the population is it's not, the system's broken, right? So we can go in and audit more when we look at risk and we look at how the organization is operating, and very much what the CEO said and what the chair said is there's greater organizational issues that cause, right? So oversight is a critical aspect. We have the function where you have independent oversight. In contracting, you have organizational oversight. So the contracting department has to be organized in a way where it not only has the policies and procedures in place, but then it is monitoring to ensure that those things are occurring. So when we look at 34% of the population and we say we can't verify that there's adequate support to ensure that the work was done, that has to be immediately addressed. So more sampling, and we know, right, sampling, you can extrapolate it against the population. It's still going to come back with the same answer. Maybe we could provide you more nuance, but I don't know that the cost versus benefit would really address that. Would be worth it.
That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Burkholder.
Thank you. Many of you have asked the questions that I was going to ask as well. So thank you, colleagues, for that. And I'm just cannot get past, if you look at the Appendix B, prior audit information, and you note the differences in the original amount and the current amount, and you add it up, it's like $174 million. That's taxpayer money. That is a lot of money. So I appreciate my colleagues' attention to that. And I'm very interested in recouping some of this and how we go forward with that. That's not your ball of wax, I get it, but it's shocking. If it were private businesses not doing business with the government, they would be out of business.
And to your point, Councilmember, I just want to say, it is our ball of wax. Our ball of wax is to make sure that we stop this, right? So I just want to say, currently we have an audit going on of HNTB, right? We're going to be drilling down on the process and how contracts were moved through, how task orders were moved through, right? We have a sole source contract audit going on as well, right? So we are trying to get at this at different angles. Right, because we want to understand the comprehensive issues that need to be dealt with. So I share your concern.
And I was actually referring to recouping the money as not something you go out and do, but no, we have got to get to the bottom of that because, HNTB, everybody knows, Let's Go San Diego Measure G campaign. Did we fund some of that? I mean, because I'm not real happy with that if that's the case. I think that was just the biggest shocking thing. But, the other thing is, thank you for recognizing that we do need to put controls in to mitigate these situations from happening. And there was quite a bit of turnover and different things going on within the agency. It still doesn't excuse the reckless waste of taxpayer money. So I appreciate the attention, and hopefully we'll get more information as the days go by with the audits that you're doing. Thank you.
She left. Okay. Councilmember Fisher.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate the report. Really happy to hear that the ERP is online and has been for a few months. Obviously, in the situation we've been in, looking back is to the past is going to help improve the future. But I hope this time, next year that we're looking at the ERP and how that performs, because I know it was a lot of work to get put in. And I agree with Mayor Krantz with, dealing with our contractors. Obviously, you deal with contractors or any type of business on a consistent basis you kind of become lax, it becomes a casual relationship. I definitely think that our contractors really have to understand that, we're not going to do business if they do things that perhaps we're too casual or familiar. And again, to Mayor Krantz, I think we just need to stop the schlock with our contractors.
Thank you. Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so in the original letter that you wrote to us, it says most concerning is the finding that invoices totaling 13 million or 32.39% of the sample size did not include sufficient documentation to determine what work was completed by the contractors. Do we know now if the work was actually completed or not? I'm unclear of that part.
So the system is broken, right? It goes back to there isn't that information available. So in order to go back and look at those, right? If you wanted to identify if there's more information or to go back to the vendors, that would be a management. If you would like management to do that, but that is not, we're looking at the higher level, and you may want a response from management and not me on this, so.
Right, yeah, whoever can answer that question, I mean, do we even know at this point in time if that work has actually been completed?
Well, based on what the project managers approve, they are vouching that it was done. We can go and double check on all that work, and it could be from a plan set to actual construction. So we could do a random check, and we can work with OIPA to help us kind of select and verify that.
Well, it seems to me that seems like a minimum thing we should already have thought about if the work has actually been done. I mean, there's been discussion about our management, our project managers haven't done their job. Well, we know for a fact HNTB has not done their job when they were managing contracts for us. So we already know that that's been a failure. So, and yet we've paid them a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars, and we have an audit going on with them right now, and we're still using them. And I find that, to Councilmember Burkholder's discussion a little bit earlier, I find that baffling. So, this is all a random audit, so it's really only a fraction of what actually we've paid out. I think, the fact that, going back to the prior audit information, we've got between 46 to 99% change in original contracts, and then what we've actually awarded, the current amount that we awarded. That's a lot of money. And so I guess my question would be, and Mayor Krantz had brought this up, if we, and just a quick question before I get into that, am I clear in understanding that we have not ascertained whether they actually have, if we've seen an improvement from when the audit was completed? I think that was the audit that was done in 22 to now. Do we know if there's been an improvement and anything has actually changed since then?
So what you will know shortly when we have the corrective action plan, the recommendation follow-up plan, then you will have OIPA is verifying. So if management has said, we have addressed the recommendation, we've put it in place, then we go through an annual verification process, and then we'll attest to whether it's implemented, partially implemented, or not implemented.
Okay, so if we come up with these new regulations and processes, what happens in the interim? Because I'm going to give you an example, because on the management action plan, it says, for instance, there's a due date of invoice rates versus approved rates of December 31st, 2024. In the interim, between now and 2024, there's not a new process, but are we still going back and double checking and looking at that information? Because if I was doing things that were not proper and I'm a contractor, I would use this time knowing that there was if no one's paying attention, I would use this time to actually do whatever I've been doing all along. I mean, I would think that would be a prudent thing that they would be thinking. So I want to make sure that in the interim, we're not just saying, okay, well, nothing's going to happen until December 31st. And I'm not saying staff at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, is it a possibility of something like that? Because I want to make sure if we have to look, if we don't have a process actually in place, that we're doing something else to make sure that that's not happening.
Mayor Jones, thank you. And just to clarify, and I think this is a good clarification when it comes to recommendation. We go in and we audit and we find deficiencies, right? It is management then that should be addressing that. Just because we say this is a recommendation and you need to address it, then the directives that come from management, to your point, to address the gaps, that would be how management would then address that. So I'm going to leave it to management to address that.
That makes sense.
And I can answer some of the items that we've done. Just some examples, sole sourcing. We have a weekly check-in with contracts and myself, and we evaluate every single sole source request. And we go and we make sure that it's a ballot request. Sometimes they're almost finished and they just need to get a little bit more time or budget to finish the work that was done. Okay. If it has merits, contracts were being put out with optional multi-phasing, meaning you get a contract for the environmental phase, and for whatever reason, engineering, public information, whatever, and then it had an optional extension for the future phases. Let it be design and the construction. We stopped that. So now if you're going to work on one phase, that's the only thing that contractor is going to get, and they're not going to get any other phases. It has to be competed in interviews, and their proposals need to come in. Those are just a couple of examples that we're starting to put in. We also have put in the engineering construction divisions, higher checkpoints, new management, and the new program project management team is coming on board next week. So those are some of the items. We are tracking a lot of items in a weekly matter. I think from the directors, the one that probably meets the most with me is Kelly, because we go over each of the items and we start checking on them. And if something doesn't look good, it goes back to the drawing board.
So, back to the Appendix B that, where we've got such large discrepancies in the amount awarded and then the current amount awarded. Do we know if those were because we had changed the scope, or were they change orders, or were they that we were paying them over and above what the actual contracted rate is? Because for me, when I think about, we've got, and this is just on the audited part, we've got over $21 million that we've overpaid from what we agreed to. Is that because we paid them at a higher rate? And I agree with Mayor Kranz. If we've paid someone at a higher rate than we agreed to, we need to get that money back, because our biggest problem, and I know this is probably beating a dead horse because we talk about this a lot, we can never actually provide all of the projects that we have promised the public because we are doing things like this, maybe unknowingly. But if we're not making sure that we have gone back to say, okay, for the last, we know for sure many of these, we've overpaid people. Have we overpaid because the scope changed, which in some cases might be okay if we didn't realize, but it always costs more when you have to have a change order? Or is it because we've literally, and I'm just going to use a round number, we've agreed to $100 for an item, and we're now paying $200 for that item. And I guess that, to me, as a board member, that is really important to me to find out what that actually is. Have we overpaid on all of these things, or has it been a change of scope? And is that scope, does it make sense? I don't know. I think all that clarification is important.
And Mayor Jones, I just want to point out, so the exhibit that we put in was showing that those are the 5 contractors that we would pull our sample from. So the audit 1 and audit 2 would go into the evaluation on some of those changes. So I can dig into that more and then I can reach out to you. But I want to make sure that the findings in this audit are related to the 423 in the sample. When we look at the appendix, that is an exhibit from part 2. So that's going to have different meaning than what we're talking about here. We want to lean into the exhibits in particular for this audit.
Yeah, that's good. That's good information. I guess, again, back to the point of, I think Councilmember Gasterland had said this, that even though it's random, there could be another random that proves up the same exact findings that, like moving forward. So just to, get all of the information that we possibly can, because the fact that this is happening, and listen, I have every faith, Mario, that you'll be able to turn things around. And SANDAG staff, I know we have a lot of new finance staff. We just need to bring back our credibility because we've done some things. I mean, and it's proven up here that we've done some things that we're not on the up and up. We have overpaid. The reasons of overpaying, I think it's kind of unclear, maybe at this point. I think once we delve in more to HNTB and that sort of thing, I think it will be more helpful for us to be able to figure out what it is and give you the tools, whatever those might be, to figure out, has there been fraud? I don't know. I wouldn't say that hasn't been ruled out. I'm not saying there is, but we don't know for certain because why were the changes happening? I guess that's.
Mayor Jones, can I just clarify for a moment? The original award amount versus the current award amount, those are all based on approved, authorized amendments to a contract or to a task order. And so those come through my department. We look at them and make sure they're in compliance. Now, might some of those have been cardinal changes? Certainly, because in those particular vendors are working in our large A&E contracts. One of them, I think, was our Mid-Coast contractor. That project had major change orders. It shifts, it changes as we go along. And so, but I can assure you that those are not overpayments. Those are, totaling up all the contracts across many contracts that some of our vendors hold and the task orders that issued underneath them. So they are authorized amendments, whether they're sole source or not sole source.
So I guess one of the things when I was chair before I was actually elected as mayor, so this has been a few years, but we had a situation with I think it was Los Penasquitos Bridge where it kept coming back, costing more money. And one of the things I know that we didn't do is we didn't have flagging as part of the original bid, which I had asked the director at the time. I said, well, that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't we have flagging? That's a very standard thing that you have to have during, a bid process. And he didn't have an answer for me. And I said, okay, well, who did the bidding? And he said, well, it was SANDAG and NCTD together. And I said, well, are we in charge of that or is SANDAG in charge of that? And honestly, I never really got an answer. So I'm really not quite sure how that happened. I guess as a board member, the more information that we have is probably going to help us out better. So I think some of these details that you're sharing right now are very helpful to understand. But we also do know that in some cases, and maybe it's not on those examples themselves, that we have paid different from what we actually agreed to originally. And that is very upsetting, because again, people say, why don't you ever, provide all of the projects that you've actually promised people or the public? And, for us, we have to figure out why that is. And I think part of it is that we have had changes in some cases. And, again, change orders can be very pricey because they're not part of the original bid. So making sure that we are having a full scope of a project. And I know in Mid-Coast that wasn't nearly possible. But anyway, wanted to give you some of my observations. But I am looking forward to everything that comes back to us, having as much information as possible, because if we are not always understanding everything because we don't know if we have all the information, I think it's even more problematic for the public, and we really need to get that that confidence in us back. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Shu.
Thank you. We're not taking any action on these items. It's just simply for discussion, and the discussion is good, but I'm also aware of our time. So I'll make my comments real quick. Just following up on Councilman Gastelum's point, it seems like if you're going to sample 400, it would have been better if it was random out of the 5 contractors as opposed to 100% of one of them, which obviously having 80 sampling of from one contractor when you're doing 400 seems to potentially skew your sampling. And I think that was her point, that looked a bit off. But that's a quick comment. We have about 1% of the contracts or payments without proper signatures or something to that effect. That doesn't bring up too much of an alarm, although I'm kind of worried why a signature is missing. And I don't know how that compares with other agencies. The other 30-some% with not adequate documentation, what are we talking about in that case? What would be an example of the range of things that are not well enough documented?
So they could be, if it's required, it could be a progress report, it could be timesheets, it could be lack of timesheets for subcontractors. So it's those things that verify work has been done.
Great. So do we know how that compares with other large, multi-million-dollar projects, whether by Caltrans? I shudder to think what the federal government does, whether or not they have records of like that as well.
Councilmember, I don't know how it compares, but I will go back to the contract oversight function. This is what has been addressed even in when we talked about the templates being updated by contracts, and the work that both finance and contracting are doing to make sure that supporting documentation is attached and that project managers are trained in order to verify the work, that we can look as far as what other agencies are doing. When I look at this and I see 34%, that the amount of tightening that needs to occur, which is the recommendations we've made and what management is working on, is critical.
Right. I totally agree. That is not a good, 30-some% is not a good number. It should be brought down to maybe under 5 or 1 or 2%. The other point I think is important for us to know is that these are change orders. They're not overpayment, as was pointed out by Kelly. I think that's important for us to know. However, there is the issue of doing change orders without going to rebid on something, particularly when it's...
We're mixing things. I just want to be clear. So we put an exhibit in the report to say, this is why we zoned in on these 5 contractors, right? And that exhibit was from the 2022 audit. This is an invoice and payments audit. So it's different than change orders and amendments. That's something different. This was looking at what invoices we've paid to these 5 contractors, knowing that 1,700 invoices were paid over the scope of our work, and we picked 423 to then evaluate. So just to make sure that the distinction is there.
Okay. I think I'm getting a better picture. I'm going to end my question in there. I think there is more to look at, and I'm happy that we are getting this kind of report and additional clarification.
All right, so we have 2 more people on the queue, and then I'm going to go ahead and close this up so we can continue on. Councilmember Chavez and then Mayor Kearns.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm not going to be repetitive and go over what everyone has said. I'm going to be really brief, and I know we're all as a board demanding transparency. We thank you for all the hard work. As board member Markson mentioned, that there was another study, right? That needed to be made to see this money, this 13 million, this contracts, what didn't we complete? What can we get back? I think that the next recommendation we can make to the CEO and the chairwoman and as a board is to see if we can have another study to determine what can we get back from the contractors that they knew what, probably knew that they had to comply with certain stuff and hit certain marks and with certain work that they needed to. So I think that from those 13 million we were talking about, maybe there's another study we can look into to see what can we get back. I think that's the overall sentiment that I'm hearing. And that's just what I'm going to finalize with. Thank you.
I'll be brief. Looking at Appendix B, I'm wondering, I'm assuming that there was somebody that punched in a bunch of numbers in a spreadsheet, right? And so to get between the difference, current amount awarded and the original amount awarded, that's probably documented what each of those items was. Is there a way to see that level of detail to have a better understanding of, and it would have some sort of note about what the item was, what was increase the value of the contract?
We can go back to the 20. So this is the audit that was issued in 2022. We can go back and provide you more information on what the original award was versus the current
Right. And
award.
here's the reason I'm interested, because if the board policy is such that we allow the executive director to approve increases in contracts without board authorizing that, then, and every one of these transactions were under that amount and maybe a buck or two under, maybe we can see a trend in that we might want to address. And, each of these items, were they, allowed under board policy and therefore didn't require board approval, or did the board approve them? And maybe the date that the board approved them. These are all things that I think would be very valuable for identifying possible shortcomings in our board policies.
So Mayor, I would have to go back and look at the 2022 audit and see the information in there. I just want so the invoice and payments audit is different than the 2022. And this would be the amendments and change orders, and then looking at the audit's objectives and what work was done to those. So we can provide information on what was done in that audit period. It may be it's not in the scope of this current audit.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to create a bunch of more work. I'm just hopeful that the work's already been done and all we need to do is see the details. I look at that table and it's.
Well, let us provide more information on the table, because I know.
Right. And if it turns out that you can't do this easily, maybe we need to look at how we can get this information, because it's an issue of credibility. We need to show that we've been accountable for the duties that we have as board members and as a public agency. And so when you look at that, it's just like, holy cow, well, maybe somebody's been asleep here and we need to wake up and change some policies that, to the tune of gazillion dollars, we just kind of let a contractor double the value of the contract.
We can definitely send out information on that exhibit.
We're interested in going on, but I hope we can get drilled down on this much more.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of the great work and for all the feedback and management report, for also addressing the concerns. I know there's a lot of work to be done and I don't want to be repetitive. So I'm going to move forward. I know we've had a lot of conversations about this. So thank you, everyone. All right, so this is what I'm going to do with the rest of the agenda, because it's 1 o'clock and we have closed session. So I'm going to go ahead and take public comments for closed session, and then I'm going to take non-agenda public comments and then go into closed session. And that way we won't have to wait around. Thank you.
So to clarify, Chairwoman, you want to take continued non-agenda first and then closed session?
Yes.
Public comments? Thank you. So I have 4 continued non-agenda public comments from the beginning of the meeting, allegedly Audra, and then virtually Paul the Bold, B. Mittermiller, and phone number 672. If you're still present, raise your hand at this time. Allegedly Audra, please come to the podium.
All right, so man, imagine all the missing kids that have come across this border unaccompanied, right? Unaccompanied alien children, hundreds of thousands of them have just disappeared. But what is the problem with that, right? And then I'm just wondering if anybody thinks it's a problem that a family of four, a 2-year-old's little child and a 4-year-old little child were murdered with their parents in New York, and then they burned the house down by an illegal. This is what happens. And so I'm just wondering if it actually has to happen to you for it to matter, or someone you know, for it to matter. Just wondering how many more people have to die, or how many more children have to be raped, right? 5-year-olds being raped. I mean, imagine that. Imagine what that's going to be like for her to grow up, you know, knowing that there's no justice in that because we have, you know, sanctuary status here and we protect the illegals. In fact, Nora herself wants to do that, to protect the community, right? So I asked her, would she tell that?
And your time expired. Our next commenter, Paul the Bold, please go ahead. You are self-muted. Go ahead, sir. Okay, I'm going to go on to the other commenter that we have virtually, phone number 672. Please go ahead.
Please return to the other caller who couldn't get through. Anyways, what I was going to say is, God, I had so much to say. And do I get another minute, by the way, for my last meeting of you? Whatever, it doesn't even matter. I know you guys don't honor anything. So anyways, this is not what I was going to say, but I'm going to say it now. Rebecca Jones was saying earlier, the real question, after all the failures done on the taxpayer dime, why have we allowed for this period? Why do we continue to allow for this? Why? I mean, all the questions that you were asking were in fact necessary, but the real question is, why do we continue to allow for the corporate government and their agencies to get away with so many epic, disastrous failures that the people have to pay for and are still paying for? And the thing is that we have the audacity to question and wonder, and it goes on and on and on. And aside from being concerned with the Pledge of Allegiance being done at these meetings, the truth is that these meetings shouldn't even be happening at all. SANDAG needs to go, just like the Federal Reserve. There should be no SANDAG. It serves.
And your time expired, and I will go back to Paul the Bold. Please go ahead.
You can hear me now, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Does SANDAG really represent the whole county? You've got Robin Joy Maxon sitting over there, theoretically representing half the county, yet she doesn't have a vote. Since SANDAG is in the tax business, this is really taxation without a representation. The proposed Transnet tax requires only a 50% majority, so it's a general tax. SANDAG can spend it on whatever it wants, not just listed projects. There are examples just for show. There are incomplete projects, improper contracts, wasted funds, scandals not even properly investigated, with the guilty still on board. Item 7 accepts an $850,000 grant to enhance construction worker placement and support, of which only $90,000 actually goes to worker placement.
Your time expired. That concludes the public comments that were continued non-agenda from the beginning, and I will move on to public comments for the closed session item number 11. I currently have 3 in-person public commenters and 1 virtual. Mark, please come to the podium. You'll be followed by Truth.
Mark, obviously there's incredible negligence that these people's property was flooded. And what I notice is that no matter what the government does, we taxpayers pay for it. And I never see anyone being held accountable. Also, I think at the Board of Supervisor meeting that Nora is also chairing, she was talking about $650 million for the climate action plan. This is money that should be put into infrastructure and things like this. The fact that they're doing climate action plan and not fixing the sewer systems or the flood systems, it's just unbelievable. And someone should be held accountable. Normally, they would be fired, but at least reprimanded somehow, fined something, because government just seems to be able to do anything and never be responsible in any way whatsoever, ever. I mean, these people lost hundreds of there's so many litigants here. It's like over 1,000 people lost their homes because some idiot.
And your
is doing
time
climate action
expired.
plan instead
Our
of
next
this.
commenter, Truth, please come to the podium and you'll be followed by allegedly Audra.
All right, lawyer Dominic Martini, who's also representing the over 1,000 flood survivors, no thanks to the city of San Diego's negligence, along with the LA-based law firm Engstrom, Lipscomb and Lack, are suing SANDAG. There's a total of 1,277 claimants. You guys are really racking them up. How is that possible if we go with the official government lie that the flooding was all climate change? People aren't suing the climate for a reason. The real flood is the flood of lawsuits people have to file in order to get justice and end corruption by government. Larry Sanjak, a homeowner near affected 41st Street, had some good advice for the city that also applies to SANDAG. He said, quote, "My message to the city would be, don't spend the money that you get to clean out the stormwater channels on bike lanes," end quote. While we the people could barely afford to be dining in, SANDAG was checking out. SANDAG's full of expensive bike lanes, lawsuits, and wasted tax dollars. That's why I have these. No on Measure G. I didn't bring that sign because I didn't make one. My own mother told me about that commercial and she said, "You got to see this." I said, "What? I haven't seen it." So I was inspired by a commercial that was actually better than SANDAG's commercials about taxing us. Thank you.
Your time expired allegedly, Audra. Please come to the podium. You'll be followed by the final three commenters on closed session item 11, phone number 672, Paul the Bold and B. Mitter Miller.
Just imagine the negligence that happens and it costs the people more money, right? If we just kept up with the infrastructure, how cool would that be? I mean, that'd be good so that people don't have to lose everything. But also recognizing that there was cloud seeding going on right during and before and after the storms. So until we acknowledge that there is weather modification happening, we're going to pretend it's climate change and continue to allow people to be put in danger, especially when we're not even keeping up with the infrastructure. But you could start there and then also go into trying to do something about banning that here in San Diego. There are other states that have acknowledged that it happens. They know there's weather warfare going on. And so they bring forward legislation to make sure it doesn't happen in their state. Instead, we have to worship this climate god and go, oh my gosh, because it fits right into the agenda, right? As long as we don't acknowledge it, it just goes right along and then you can continue to push your, climate action plan. This is sacrificing people for that God, and it needs.
When your time expired, phone number 672, please go ahead.
And to the representatives there, please encourage your constituents and the people that you supposedly represent to show up. Encourage them to get involved. Encourage them not to just sit by on the sidelines and rely on you, because obviously you're not making it happen. And, just like the storm and all that other stuff, it's just, we have our neighbors, our brothers and sisters down South County suffering, getting sick, and all you guys do is talk. So reckless. It's infuriating. It's infuriating to be paying attention to these silly meetings that go on and on and on, and it's just, there's no results. It's just a waste of the time of the people and also our money. And it's just like, it's like you ignore, these politicians ignore people like Dr. Kimberly Prather. She wrote, "I have a well-established track record in air measurements." And it's deeply disturbing to see a politician, Nora, who is not an air expert, to try and smear the reputation and efforts of those of us who are the experts working around.
Your time expired. Our next commenter, Paul the Bold, please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, a brief comment. it says a lot about SANDAG that there's still unresolved cases, 5 of them from the January flood, with a lot more plaintiffs, may I add. SANDAG, time and time again, it seems to be playing for time, and I mean, it should be obvious by now, but I'll say it again. It should be abolished. It is no longer representative of the county. It should be abolished and reconstituted.
They serve private interests and not the people.
And our final commenter on the closed session item, B. Mittermiller, please go ahead.
Hi, this was actually going to be a non-agenda public comment, but I'm sorry. I hope you'll let me talk anyway. Anyway, what a meeting, a lot of emotions and drama. Good afternoon, everybody. B. Mittermiller representing San Diego 350. We are anticipating the report on the modeling of the 2025 regional plan. Ideally, the plan will improve public transit service with fast, frequent, reliable, accessible, safe, and affordable transit that serves workers, people with disabilities, students, seniors, immigrants, and those who depend upon transit, regardless of their gender, identity, race, or class. But also, we would like to see a much larger reduction in greenhouse gas emissions than the one presented in the 2021 regional plan, which was 19%. What about 25%? Thank you for your attention. Have a good afternoon.
So for consistency, you were supposed to be a non-agenda public comment. I'm just going to put it for the record that there was some confusion, which is why we allowed you to do that. But for the future, please be mindful, because if you are on the queue and you don't, if you don't speak during the time allotted for the item, we are not able to allow you to speak. We have to follow protocols. So thank you very much.
That concluded the public comments.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we're going to go ahead and move into closed session. I'm going to ask everyone who does not need to be here in this item to please exit the room, and then we will reconvene to share any reportable actions to take non-agenda public comment.
Right, the board met in closed session on item number 11 and voted to reject the claim.
Thank you. With that, this concludes our meeting. Monday? We got it. I'm running this meeting. I got you. All right. This concludes our meeting. The next Board of Directors meeting will be on September 27th at 9 a.m. Meeting is adjourned.